Good afternoon. Calling the regular December meeting of the POA Board to order, for the last time by me anyways. My name is Bob Brunetti, the President of the Board for 2025. I will confirm that we have a quorum present. There are 6 members present. 1 member, John Arguelles, is missing. Lucky for him, he's boarding a boat in Fort Lauderdale for a Christmas cruise. I have a few announcements before we start the actual process of the meeting. First one is that the Architectural Control Committee, starting in 25, will only meet 1 time per month. That will be on the first Thursday of each month. They will no longer meet twice. There are not enough, I guess, homes being built at this point to rationalize twice a month, so they're going to be once a month, the first Thursday of the month. The second announcement is the Government Affairs Committee is being disbanded. Notices about the dates of elections and the polling places or election where you go to vote will be handled by the Communications Committee in 2025. Next, as we indicated last month, a meeting was held on December the 6th with Mr. Reed and Mr. Lackey, and they presented their position on the, quote, TAP 2.0 plan to the administration. Public Works, Matt McRae was a member of the PSAC committee to, in fact, examine and evaluate the information that was presented to the board and to the committee, or by the committee, and report back to the committee their findings. Since that was only 12 days ago, it's not going to happen this month. It's most likely going to happen in the first part of next year. So until that is done, no further action is going to be taken by the board on any water or sewer issues at this point in time. So today there will be no votes on concerning anything on water and sewer. What I will tell you is that the TAP program, until we get that report, whenever it may be, hopefully it's in January, is on hold. Second, there'll be a presentation a little later by Mr. McRae and by Matt as to what they've done so far concerning the information that was provided and some steps they have in fact taken, including they have been in contact with other engineering companies just to feel them out about the time frames, et cetera, about looking at the Jacobs report and other things. So that is something that is in fact going forward. Also, the 91 tanks that were identified previously in the survey have been looked at, and Matt will explain that when he brings up his presentation. The last thing, the announcements, is the Kahidi property. We have signed a contract to sell 17.12 acres of property to a developer in Kahidi. That contract has a number of contingencies, including feasibility studies, soil samples, all kind of TRDA approval, permits, et cetera, et cetera. That has a tentative closing date of 6 months. So between now and the next 6 months, the developer would be doing all his studies, getting his permits, et cetera, and the closing should take place hopefully within 6 months or maybe sooner if he gets it done. But it's a reputable builder who's built many homes in the village, and these will be single-family homes which will be compatible with the neighborhood. So that's something that's going forward. And the proceeds from that sale will go towards paying down the Cooper loan. Those are all the announcements that I have. The next thing, I guess, I have to listen to Marty.
So, per Bob's request, I'm not going to make him stand up in the middle like we normally do, but both Bob Brunetti and John Arguelles have served 3 years on the board, and both are retiring from the board, and just want to acknowledge their contributions and everything that they've done for this community over the past 3 years. We do have a plaque for Bob. But like I said, he didn't want to get up now, so afterwards we'll take a picture, but it basically just acknowledges his role on the board for the past 3 years. So thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you all, and I will have some further remarks at the end of the meeting, but I also wanted to wish everyone in the village, all the residents, a happy Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from the board itself. We then go on to the minutes of the previous meeting. Any additions?
Bob, I have 2 modifications
Right.
to the minutes. First one being the advisory committee chair is Mike Harriton, or Michael, either one.
Okay.
And the second was on the vote related to the golf fee schedule. The minutes indicate that you dissented and you indicated you did not.
That's correct.
So that would become a 7-0 vote.
All right, thank you. Any other corrections, additions, deletions? I'll entertain a motion on the,
I move that we accept the minutes as revised for the November 20th, 2024 TVPOA meeting, board meeting.
I'll second them.
second. Any discussion? All in favor? Minutes are approved, 7-0. Oh, 6, I'm sorry, John's not here, excuse me, 6. Wounded Warrior Awards. Simon here? Simon, you want to come up and, you got your 5 minutes of fame coming?
Thanks for letting me present this.
Turn the mic on.
Nope, turn
Turn it on. How about now?
yeah.
Thank you all for the opportunity to present. I'll be quicker than 5 minutes. This is for the Warriors at Ease program, and what this is, it's the state of Tennessee Recreation and Parks Association. So all across the state, we have about 2,000 professionals, whether directors, community center managers, and whatnot. And for 20 years, I've tried to get this particular award for different programs and stuff. We do all kinds of programming. This year, I put the award in for the Warriors at Ease program when they saw our video. And so we got designated as the best in the state for programs, which is highlighting Tellico Village. It's presented Tellico Village Parks and Recreation Warriors at Ease for innovative program. We change the world not by what we say or do, but as a consequence of what we have become. This is a huge award where, like, Memphis to Kingsport, everybody put in for it, and they actually send everything up to Indianapolis for folks outside the state to vote on it. So I just wanted to recognize them for that. And
We will move on to the CEO report.
Okay. Well, I'll get to it here in a second. There we go. Okay, we've already talked a little bit about some of these things. Every time I have my notes, Bob comes in and, wants to talk about them all. But anyway, we did have a meeting last Friday, and as Bob mentioned, that there were multiple people there. Good meeting. They gave their presentation, and the takeaway, as Bob said, was that we would ask Jacobs to look at their 2021 report and compare it to the 2024 report and determine why there is a difference and give their final position, for lack of a better word, on the difference between those two and what they recommend. But there was a good discussion, and the reports were evaluated, and at that time, most of the folks who were there, including Mike, agreed that they preferred the 2021 report from Jacobs. And so there'll be that discussion about which one and why did Jacobs go a slightly different way from their original report, if they say that. I don't know what they're going to say yet. That's back to Bob's point. Everything's on hold until we get that information back and then can evaluate that and make a decision. Also, to clarify, apparently there was information put out that we would need a permit from TRDA to do any kind of work on any leased property. I confirmed with both TRDA and their legal counsel that that is not true, that we have utilities all over this community that rest on TRDA property, and a permit is not necessary, nor do they even weigh in on the topic either way. So I just wanted to put that piece of information to bed. Matt's going to talk a little bit in here in a minute. I'm going to bring both these gentlemen up in the middle of mine. But Matt is going to talk a little bit about some of the work that we've done over the last 2 weeks with the 91 or 2, I never get the number right, so I always punt with that, 91 or 92, units that came up in their study that said they were possibly in error, or possibly needed work on it, or could possibly be an I&I issue. So he's worked on all those. He'll talk about that more in detail, and we've looked at all those. Some of them we put risers on, some of them we didn't because they might cause other issues, but he'll touch on that. And last but not least, Tanasi is rolling along. Tanasi, the project itself, Scott McRae and I meet every morning on this, but the project itself is broken up into 4 phases. Why we went with 0, 1, 2, and 3, I'm not sure, but that's the way they broke it up. So it's 4 phases. And in phase 0, currently they are rerouting the cart path and moving that around. You'll see that there's also stakes out. I'm not recommending that you walk out in the middle of it, but if you want to stand on the side and look, the pink stakes define where the building itself will be. And that might give you an interesting point of view as you look at that. And one last thing that I don't know that it matters, I forgot to mention about the TRD. It's been brought up that TDEC has not approved any of our projects, and that would be an absolute fact for one reason and one reason only. They don't approve anything until I hand them stamped design for them to report on, or either say yes or no on. So that won't happen until we give them that. They are aware that we have a project, but they've not approved anything, nor will they until we give them stamped plans. And that's true of all the projects that we work on that have to do with water and sewer. They have to approve all that. I just wanted to clear up that. Apparently it was an issue. I didn't realize that, but I just wanted to clear that up. All right, Matt, what you got for us, brother?
Well, let me do Scott first. Let's do
Scott first? Sorry, okay.
He's got Tanasi and a few other things. Right, you can sit down. You gotta use the clicker anyways. Those of you who don't know, this is Scott McCrae. He's a property owner, and he's the person we have hired as a project manager. He was announced last month, and his credentials were all put up there last month, and we're very happy to have Scott on board, and he's already diving into all these different things.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. So I just want to give a quick update on where we are with the Tanasi Clubhouse. This is the most recent rendering of the clubhouse. For those that might have seen previous renderings, you'll notice that instead of the 10-foot high, give or take, retaining wall at the back, it is now a graded slope. So what we've done is we've moved it forward, and that's enabled us to save a considerable amount of money on retaining walls and structure there. So I just wanted to show everybody that. And as Chet said, if you go out and look at the site, the pink stakes actually mark the corner of the slabs and where the buildings will be. Some of the buildings do have outside seating, so that would be covered, and you would see where all of that is. A couple of the golfers have told me it's a little closer to the green than they thought, so it gives them a real opportunity to hassle their buddies when they're out on the golf course. We let the contract back in October, the end of October, and a significant goal of the rebuilding of the clubhouse during construction is to minimize interruptions to the golf operations. We've had a number of meetings with Casey and Wells to talk about how we're going to do the construction, the phases, which I'll get into in just a minute. But whenever we're doing anything around the greens or around the course, we will notify them 6 or 7 days in advance so that they can take the appropriate actions with the golfers and perhaps close down hole 9 if we're working in the front of hole or around that hole. I know everybody's going to hate to take a par on that hole if you don't have to play it, but we will be coordinating that. We do expect the construction to take 14 to 16 weeks and months, I'm sorry, thank you. 14 to 16 months, they're good, but perhaps not quite that fast. And that will give us a grand opening sometime in the first quarter of 2026. We did the groundbreaking on the wonderful, beautiful, cold day back on December 2nd, and they've already got all the silt fences and safety fences up for where we're going to do the initial work. So I do suggest if you do go out there to see, or if you're playing, please stay behind the safety fences. I'm out there on a regular basis, 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a day. If you're out there, you see me there, and have a question, more than happy to answer those questions. but please stay away from the construction activities and the folks there. They are working on a guaranteed maximum price. So any interruptions to them or to the contractors that are working could be an issue. So please stay away from them. Come to me. Okay, there we go. As I mentioned, we're going to do 4 phases. The first phase, we're moving the cart path. You can see where, for those of you that are out there, there's orange stakes will show where we're going to be putting the new cart path in. It's a little wet to be out there today, so they're just knocking down trees and starting to take some of the materials out of the parking lot. Once we get the cart path relocated so that you can get around the course and get through the temporary shed there and to the starter shack, we will start working on moving the parking lot. That parking lot is, the new parking lot is going to be right where the practice green is. So they'll be excavating that area and move all the materials over there, put in a temporary parking lot, and that will be the location of the permanent parking lot. Phase 2 then goes into the building construction. So we'll have a pretty substantial basement which will hold the carts. And then from there, the pro shop and the restaurant will be built. Restaurant on slab on grade, the pro shop over the cart barn or cart shed. And phase 2 will run pretty much for about 9 to 12 months and get us right into the end of next year. At that point, we hope to have a temporary certificate of occupancy or certificate of occupancy. We'll then just be doing the punch lists, and at that point, we will be moving in with all of the village supplied materials, the furniture, the kitchen smalls and things like that, as well as final landscaping. The contractor, RTC, who built Tokwa, will also do kind of a preliminary grade for the new practice green and everything there, and then the golf operations will bring in a golf course construction company that will do the final green and all. Pro shop will be done before the restaurant, and that's so we can move the temporary pro shop and that building out of the way so we can finish construction. And so that's pretty much the plan. Like I said, if there's ever any questions, you see me around, I'm in the community, feel free to ask. Just a quick photo of when they were putting the silt fence in. We've got a double black silt fence all along just above the 820 line, all along the lake there. Another view of that looking out over. And then our safety fences. So this is what the safety fences look like. So if people would, you can go up to them, but please don't go over them because that's where we'll be working, and there becomes all kinds of safety issues and potential injuries. We don't want to have anybody do that. As part of the notice to proceed to move forward, we gave the contractor $2.2 or $2.3 million notice to proceed. That's basically to complete all of phase 0, phase 1, and all of the grading and all of the asphalt work. Those were subcontracts that will be let once, so we had to approve all of the subcontracts for that so they could let those subcontracts, and they'll be invoiced as construction is completed. And in future board meetings, and for anybody that wants to know about progress, I will be reporting, breaking all of this down into work packages and be able to report percent completes and cost of whether we're over budget, under budget, and all. And as we get value engineering, where we get credits for that as well. So I'll be able to do that in future meetings. Marty?
Just to be clear, the 2.3 million has not been actually paid.
It has not been paid.
Yeah.
It's just the amount of subcontracts that we've authorized the work to be completed. And again, as I mentioned, you can see the grading, the asphalt, that's for everything. We expect probably about 30% of that or to 40% of that to be as part of phase 0 and phase 1. But I'll have all those details. And the same thing is with the overhead and general conditions for the contractor. They get their piece as they do complete. So on the I&I issues, let me just talk a little bit, and then I'll get Matt up here. Public Works is addressing I&I, but as his presentation will show you, the I&I issue is a pretty complicated issue because you could have potentially drainage issues, you could have location of the tank, and so there's a lot of other considerations. So one of the things that Matt and I are working on together right now is to build a complete and comprehensive plan so that either his team or somebody, a contract, can go out and address I&I for the tanks where we think there will be issues or could be issues. It's not as simple as just looking at a tank. We know we have, and I think Matt's got a picture or two of some tanks that we know are underwater when it rains. The lids are underwater, the tanks themselves are underwater. We suspect that they might be sources of I&I, but we don't know that. So we have to get the meters, we have to get the monitors, so that we can say, once we fix them, yes, we really fixed an area that was a problem. Conversely, we may see in an area where a tank looks very good, and yet we don't do anything to it, and yet it's a significant contributor to I&I. So that's why I'm building a detailed plan so that we can address and then maintain that. Okay? Matt, thank you.
Rats. All right, good afternoon. As Scott said, we did some work on 91 tanks, just to clear up the discrepancy there. The survey that I received that was sent to me asked two questions. One was something I'm paraphrasing along the lines of, does drainage sort of filter water towards your tank when it rains? The second question was, does the area around your tank fill up with water when it rains? Really symptomatic of the same issue. So to be thorough, I took everyone who responded yes to either or both, consolidated them, took out the duplicates, and ended up with a sample size of 91. We completed last week, looked at all 91 tanks and took action to address those that were appropriate. I'm going to get into that for a second. But Public Works installed 5-inch risers on 48 of the 91 tanks with lids below grade. So I want to clarify, though, 43 tanks already either had risers on them or, in the operator's estimation, raising the tank lid may have resulted possibly in a backup into the resident's house. Because if you raise the tank lid up above the finished floor elevation of the home, there is a chance that that water is going to go find, as it backs up, it will go find the lowest place, and you don't want the lowest place to be in the house. So I told the operators, be careful, be cautious, be mindful. If you're not sure, leave it be. I also shared it's important to understand the surprising number of homes in Tellico Village that do not have what's referred to as a clean out. That would be the escape route before it gets to the house. I've witnessed it when I was out doing roof drain testing. I've seen it myself. It's either not there or it's buried. Either way, not there or buried, it's a bad deal. So especially if they weren't able to identify a clean out, leave it be. We could cause a bigger problem than anything we're attempting to fix. So we did keep records. So for each of the 48 tanks that did receive a 5-inch riser, we have a form filled out by the operator or operators who were present, a before and an after picture. For the 43 tanks that they chose not to touch, we have before pictures, and they drove away. I asked the operators, in their estimation, could be subjective, although they deal with this kind of stuff and are in yards all the time. Can you give me an estimate, please, while you're standing there? if you believe the tanks that you're examining had landscaping, roof drains, or site conditions that directed surface water towards the tank. That is our source, which may contribute to I&I. And the outcome was 28 of them, which would be included in the 48, likely. 28 of them, in their estimation, were likely I&I sort of culprits, we might say. We might be having discussions with homeowners about correcting some of these issues. The path forward at this point is not entirely clear, other than the fact that we have achieved a review of the 91 tanks that were provided in the survey that was done on Nextdoor. Any
Have those
questions?
pictures of the four?
I think those were taken out.
Oh,
Okay, go ahead. I'm gonna shut the mic up.
Just one more comment that I forgot to make. At Chet's direction, and as part of the suggestions from our meeting, I have been interviewing and reviewing the qualifications from a number of local wastewater engineering firms here in East Tennessee. And have identified some who we will be following up with and seeing whether or not it's viable for them to review the Jacobs recommendations and get another opinion should the board decide that that is necessary. But I just wanted folks to know I'm moving forward with a very comprehensive plan to address all of these issues. As I said when Chet hired me, I'm a homeowner. I'm very interested in having the right answers as much as everybody else is. And so I'm doing everything within my professional capability that I can do that. And as Chet said, I meet with him every day. So whether it's the TAP projects or Tanasi, I stay in contact and I let them know what we're doing, and I'm moving forward with those.
thank you. We'd like to hold any questions and comments until the end of the meeting, if that's okay. Yes, on all topics, Thank you. Thank you. All right, the financial report, Judy?
Right, first thing. Okay, let's take a look at our balance sheet. Our cash is up $8.5 million since the end of December. We are earning a weighted average rate of 4.8% on our reserve balance and 4% on much of our operating cash. Looking at the rest of our balance sheet, the balance sheet is generally strong. Our total assets are up $8.9 million year-to-date. Our total liabilities are holding steady. Our debt-to-equity ratio now stands at 18%, which is down from 23% at the end of 2023, reflecting a continued debt reduction. By preserving our borrowing capacity, we are well positioned to address our upcoming infrastructure projects and any unexpected challenges. Looking at some other balance sheet highlights over on the right-hand side, the health of our accounts receivable remains strong. The ratio of our allowance balance to the AR balance is 42% this month, improved from 49% at the end of October and 59% at the end of 2023. We foreclosed on 3 properties this month, 2 sold at the courthouse, and we received 1 lot into inventory for the 3rd one. Looking at some information on suspended accounts, the balance due from suspended accounts is down for the month and year over year. The current balance is $863,000, which represents 47% of our current accounts receivable balance. And again, the note up there, the suspended accounts are those that are 90 days or more past due. Looking at unearned revenue, the current balance is $5.4 million. As we continue through the 4th quarter of the year, we continue to see many of the early prepaid user fees transitioning to recognized revenue. Upfront payments from our residents continues to provide a significant boost to our cash flow throughout much of the year. And you can see, again, the composition of the balance up there. The utility assessments represent 49% of the current total, and the balance also includes $705,000 of unearned revenue from our water sewer infrastructure asset fee. And here's a little look at the checkbook, if you will, for our water sewer infrastructure asset fee. We have deposited a total of $901,000 into the account during October and November. That's those first two lines. You see the deposit 1024 and 1124, the $450 each over there. We spent a total of $197,000 on 3 approved projects during November, leaving $705,000 of the fee unspent at month end. As funds are spent, they transition to earned revenue, while the fees that are not spent remain in the unearned balance, that number that you saw on the previous slide. The account earned $1,500 in interest this month, leaving an ending balance in the account of $706,000. Look at our income statement. Our year-to-date revenue is better than expected by $1 million. Primary contributors to the variance are from the departments of ACC, golf, and food services. Our salaries and benefits total $12.3 million year-to-date and are $811,000 over budget. 79% of the salary overrun is attributable to food services. Other operating expenses, that's all of those except for cost of sales and the salaries and benefits, total they are $1.2 million favorable to the budget year-to-date. The greatest contributors to that variance are maintenance expenses for unused emergency water and sewer line repairs and services, which are also under budget. We have not had to use contract labor for water and sewer line repairs either. These two categories together represent 79% of that other expense variance. Our net income year-to-date totals $11.3 million, and if we add back the depreciation expense, our net surplus is $13.4 million. Excluding the Tanasi insurance, our surplus is $11.6 million, which is $2.3 million better than budgeted expectations. Here is a look at our board reserve spending report. Our total reserve spending budget, including the carryovers from 2023, that's those two numbers added together, the 3075 and 7718, equals $10.8 million. Authorized spending on these projects to date is $4.9 million, and our divisional spending totals $3,519,000 to date. Here's a look at our net surplus or subsidy by division, and that's the contributions over there from each of those departments. $11.6 million of surplus to date, and again, we've spent $3,519,000, as you saw on the previous slide, leaving a balance of $8,096. That's all I have.
Do you have a spending? Are there any questions from the board on the finance report? We have one request for a capital request.
We do, and this time it's my turn. For the accounting system, the request that we come to you today with is for $240,446 against the budget of $400,000 for the implementation of the Sage Intact accounting system. There's some highlights to share with you. I wanted to let everyone know, in case you weren't aware, that we have looked at a variety of systems to come up with this request. We looked at enterprise-grade solutions like Oracle and SAP. We looked at customizable solutions like Striven. We looked at property management software like Vantica and Rent Manager, and club management software like Northstar. And Sage was selected for its scalability, robust reporting, and ease of integration, as well as this is the only software that received an endorsement from the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. And there's some of the key benefits. modern functionality for accounting, budgeting, and reporting. We'll have streamlined reporting and expanded access for stakeholders, myself and my finance analyst over there, and for the department managers. And we'll have, primarily, the main benefit that we're looking for out of this is that it establishes a scalable foundation for future phases. Again, the cost is $240,446 for this request. This is for phase one of the implementation. And then there's an estimated $91,000 annual subscription cost from Sage Intact, and that would be a 3-year agreement that we would sign, $90,000 per year. The timeline is estimated at 20 weeks with a targeted go-live date of July 1st. We're targeting that date because we're hoping if we can stick to that timeline, we're hoping to be able to use it for the budget process next year. Our implementation partner is a large national CPA firm, Clifton, Larson & Allen, and they have extensive Sage Intact experience. They've been doing this for over 20 years. They've done over 2,000 Sage implementations, and I feel like they will help us to be very successful in this implementation. And then the last little topic down there, why do we need to replace Encompass? That Encompass is the accounting portion of our system. You've probably heard us talk about the AS400 over the years. The AS400 is really currently no longer being used. That is a legacy program that is now essentially called the IBM I, which is the next generation version of the AS400. Encompass is just the accounting piece of that, and it is out of date. It's no longer vendor supported, so that's limiting our efficiency and increases our risk. So this is our request. We're looking for a modern financial system, enhanced reporting, and preparing us for future opportunities to continue improving and modernizing our accounting system.
Judy, can you just address the fact that in that 240,000, there's approximately 50,000 of
The potential to capitalize labor that
Right.
is spent only on the development and any implementation activity, the testing, that would not include training time. That's just labor that would be spent from our staff on assisting with the implementation.
So in other words, this is 50,000 of cost that we would incur regardless.
We would incur it anyway. It's just a move from operations to being capitalized as part of the cost of the implementation.
So I have a question. So, you said this is the financial system, so are there other components then that we'll be adding subsequent to this?
This would lay out the foundation for us to get in place, and then we would research beyond that opportunities for further efficiencies, and also ultimately at the end of the day to try to look for a resident-facing solution that would allow everyone to log in on one page, pay your bills, register for your golf, et
Yep.
cetera.
So basically, the CRM system is not being replaced with this option, but it'll allow us to look into further. That will stay on the IBM at this point. The other thing is, this will allow us to be more acceptable to import from other systems like Chelsea and that into the system and our point-of-sale system for the restaurants. So that'll be supposedly phase 2, is to get that stuff implemented, and another product chosen for customer-facing CRM for the users. We're hoping to make this a lot simpler for the users to access everything, see where their account's at, pay bills, all along.
And I want to thank Ed and Mike too along the way, and also Doug Sloan from my FAC committee. They have all been so very instrumental in helping me, and we, like I say, the choices and the paths that we've taken trying to come up with this one, and I do believe we've come up with the best choice.
There's probably been a couple hundred hours spent evaluating products and meeting with vendors and looking at solutions here. So this isn't just a quick, easy thing. This has been going over for the last 2 years.
So is this a general ledger package that allows you to budget and report only?
Yes.
Well,
So it doesn't
but it's-
include AP, AR,
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
it does.
Clays AR, yeah, Clays AR too, yeah.
okay?
It's a full general ledger package.
It's a
and
general
it's-
ledger package.
It's, yes.
Okay, now the 90,000, Is that more like the old software maintenance fee per year? Is that kind of what that is?
It's a license fee, basically. You know, it's moving to the cloud, so it's a license fee.
Okay.
It's fully in the cloud.
Yeah.
We'll, we won't be having, it won't be on a server up in the upstairs room of the POA. We can log in from anywhere.
The
Safe,
vast-
secure.
So we'll be married to this forever at this point.
Well,
$8,000 a month.
it's a 3-year license fee. I mean, it's $90,000 annually. It's a 3-year contract. The system that we have now, the Encompass system and, well, the IBM system, we have had it for 20-plus years. It's the only accounting system that this POA has ever had. Prior to that, spreadsheets were being used, and it was not double-entry accounting. It was just spreadsheet listing of
I guess what I'm saying is
transactions.
3 years from now, we're not going to go out.
Wait.
Microphone,
Go to
say
the
who you
mic.
are and ask the question.
Brian Wethington.
Brian.
So we're not going to go out 3 years from now, pay another $350,000 and another $11,000 to renew this. Every 3 years, that annual fee is going to go up, correct?
Most likely, but it's, once you move to the cloud, and we do that for all other systems that are currently in the cloud, you pay a fee.
Right.
So, and that'll stay there. The goal is this will be a long-term solution, not a 3-year solution.
Okay, so another thing I have a concern about is you have to remember that everybody that lives in this village, they're not accountants.
Yep.
They're not even business people. So when they come up here and they're looking at this budget being spilled out to them,
Yep.
they need it in a pie chart, right? They can see it, where it's spelled out, where everything is, where everything's going, right? Sitting here and watching all this and racing through it doesn't explain much to the average layman that lives here in the community, right?
Well, previously, we've had pie charts up there, but most of the time, there's been nobody here for the meetings.
Yeah,
When we have
well,
to- yeah, so-
times change,
Yeah,
right?
so,
Just
but
like
yeah.
this old accounting.
Yeah, but no, but I mean,
Times change.
it's a suggestion that we can do, we can look at, we can have Judy maybe put a pie chart or something in. I don't think that's an issue, but we've had them previously, and, but we're trying to, people were complaining that the finance presentation was too long, so we shortened it, so, but think we can, we
Yeah,
gotta find,
Up until this month, every month this year, I've had bar charts, pie charts,
yeah,
every.
Yeah.
every
and
time.
I know,
That's to
I saw
shorten
the
it.
last one, I saw it, I went
Okay.
through it, so
Okay.
I'm just saying, for the average person that sees this and it's posted on our site, right, they can
Well,
see it for themselves.
We'll take the suggestion back to the finance committee and Judy and see how we can come
Especially
up
for
with
this kind
something.
of money, I mean.
Yeah.
Yep.
Couple of points that I would add in here. The vast majority of application software packages like this, at this point in time, are subscription-based services. So you're going to pay an annual fee.
Yeah, there were no systems we weren't looking at that were not subscription-based. There are no server-based systems anymore like you would have, your server residing on your server that we would want to have, I would say, at that point. There may be something older systems, but there's a single point of failure, you don't have a server on site, redundancy, so access. This provides a lot better access, and the goal is that once we get the front end implemented, users will have a very easy website or mobile app to view finances for the village and for their own personal things, like their POA fees, their water fees, and all that. That is the goal here, which may be 2-3 years down the road, but that is the goal.
So Ed, with regard to disaster recovery, since it's in the cloud, let's say something happens to our instance. Are we fully covered for disaster
Yes,
recovery?
there's 3 instances of our database out there across different data centers. So,
On that very point, just
Wait,
so
wait,
somebody-
wait.
Can I?
Yes.
Before I retired, I did cybersecurity oversight at Chicago Mercantile Exchange and Intercontinental Exchange. It's very important for the board to engage a cybersecurity expert to look at the cybersecurity of this information in the cloud, because the majority of it will be our responsibility. It's not just the cloud operator. And upwards of 95% of the major cyber disasters in the country in the last 10 years have been user error on the client side. So I'm probably preaching to the choir, but just in case, somebody needs to look at that.
And-
No, you're
and-
absolutely correct, because most of the ones, in fact, I've been involved with several that were outside of the community because I've worked in this environment before, and they were all driven not by the cloud failing, but by users failing.
Usually
sir-
somebody putting a password that's easily crackable. You know,
Sir, I
so-
don't know if you know that we're creating a new IT advisory committee. Your expertise would be great to have on that advisory committee.
So,
Seriously.
And we're still interviewing for that, so we have another interview tomorrow on that, and we do have some open spots, so if you're interested, please. I mean, we do cyber intrusion detection quarterly here, so it is a big part, but any improvements are always welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Mary Fair. I just have a quick question about the financial report. Is there an annual audit or review done?
Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
when's the release usually on that?
it's usually in the middle of the year,
Okay,
and so. and-
Early June, usually
Yeah.
late May, early June.
So you can go out on the POA website,
And
and you can
look at-
see several
Many
past
years.
years
Okay.
of audited
Thank you.
financial statements.
Thank you.
Yes. I guess, Steve, to return to a point that you raised, with this purchase, we are including a budget module. We didn't have to, but we went ahead and did that because of the fact it will be able to be integrated with the actuals. It should make budget work easier going forward, and we can move away from this morass of an Excel spreadsheets to do our budget. So there is hopefully an efficiency to be gained there. It's going to take some time and some effort, but we think that's going to be a better plan going forward.
Entertain a motion on the request?
So I will move that the board approve this expenditure of $240,000 for the new Sage Intech General Ledger Accounting System implementation and a 3-year subscription fee to go with that.
I will second it.
All right, any
Thank you very
further
much.
discussion by the board members? I just would add that this has been a 3-year project from the last 3 CFOs, and we have, as indicated, looked at all kinds of systems, had people in and done demonstrations numerous times, and this appears to be to the best benefit of the village. So, all in favor? 6-0, thank
Thank
you.
you very much, and I've got
Hey,
one.
Judy, we have a couple of questions online, just real quick.
Okay.
One is, do we currently pay an annual subscription to what we use now?
Our fee currently for using the IBM is around $1,800 a month.
And then, what is Sage's acting modules?
Their acting module,
That's what it says.
accounting module, it's,
Maybe.
I mean, it's a general ledger package. It has, yes, it does everything. It has accounts receivable, accounts payable, it has fixed assets, it has inventory, it has, project management. It's got all, it will have far more than we will ever be able to take full advantage of. It's a full, again, it's the most recognized package for the AICPA. And it's made for small to mid-sized businesses like ours.
So do you know if, kind of leading into that, do you know if there are other POAs across the country that are using this product?
No, I'm not aware of it.
Actually, yeah, Wind River's actually moving this
Oh, are
product.
they moving in that direction? I forgot
River's
you
moving
said
this
that you
product,
thought
yeah.
they were.
Yeah.
But this is a heavily used general ledger package, and it's built with such a structure that they have a defined interface. And there are literally hundreds of applications that have been written to interface with this general ledger package for different things that you may want to bring into your financials. So this is a very well-established general ledger accounting package, very well recognized, and I believe will serve us well. As Judy referenced in her comments, what we're operating on now is an unsupported general ledger package. That's not a place you want to be. And when you look at the system that the POA is operating on, it is literally 1980s mainframe viewpoint. This is a piece of stepping forward modernization that is badly needed from both a security standpoint in terms of not having a failure, and secondly, from an efficiency standpoint and being able to do things far more efficiently not only dealing with actual results and reporting of those results, but also the budget integration with it.
The other thing is, typically in the IBM stuff, we have one partner that we can really go to work on some of this stuff. And this will allow more out there level, more options for people to support us and help us modify things in the future.
I also feel like it'll help us with any future recruiting needs that we have for new people in accounting, because trying to find someone who has this experience nowadays is, I mean, Sage is well-known. I think that's going to greatly increase our recruiting opportunities when we need them.
So does this do payroll and stuff as well?
No. Payroll, we use ADP.
It will integrate with.
Okay.
Yeah, the true foundation of this product is the fact that it will integrate with so many different things. It's not that we have to go out and reinvent the wheel. If we have a product that's working, we can dump that information right into the computer to be able to use it.
Typically with the IBM product, everything we had to do was customizing it. So it's such to a point that only a few people know how it really works.
So I understand all that, and I don't, if we need it, we need it. It's old. But like I said, we have to remember that we're a POA and that we have members. We want everything to be explained to them in layman's terms. We don't want it to get convoluted, complicated for them, including myself.
No, that is my goal.
So-
This year when I got involved in this, I wanted an interface that's simple. Right now, you've got to go to a couple different websites to get information. The goal is you go to one website, it can get you to all your accounting stuff, it can get you all your Chelsea stuff, everything will be integrated there, but that's going to take time, because some of these other systems don't talk well to the current accounting system, or they don't talk at all to the current accounting system. So, and it's difficult to even do that. So once we get this base in, phase 2 and phase 3 is to bring those other systems in. So, I mean.
Well, I know our food service system is antiquated.
And we are looking at
It is.
we're looking at a new system for food services. And part of the IT committee's goal here is they will look at anybody's request for new systems. They will help them research that and help see how it integrates in with Sage and all the other systems, so we can have a comprehensive one point to go to for all your information for accounting and bills and everything like that. And I'm hoping it'll be a mobile app, so you can do it on your phone or do a website.
Right.
So.
Well,
But
like I said,
I understand. I want to make it simple.
We need to make it as the least we can.
Exactly.
Complicated.
100%.
The next matter is on the golf rate update.
Yes, sir. So, back in March, when we approved the rates, we did approve for a rate increase, for all the rate increases to remain at 3%, and golf, and was 3% across the board. But we did not include that they had actually updated the number of rounds that it took for the break even. So the green fee rounds changed from 40 to 45, and the cart package change was from 45 to 50. So that would increase the rates from $14.83 to $16.55 for a green fee plus a leased cart, and from $13.90 to $15.55 for green fee plus your private cart. And again, that's just an adjustment from the break-even number of rounds. It was still only a 3% increase in the rate. This is the rates that were approved in November, and if you look down there near the last two on the bottom, that's where the twilight rates are. You see the $14.83 and the $13.90. Those are the rates that were approved. No other changes were made to any other number on that list. And so this is the pricing sheet that we're asking you to consider today. And those last two numbers changed to the numbers that you saw on the first slide, $16.55 and $15.55. So what we're asking you to consider is this right here, an increase for the twilight packages to $16.55 and $15.55.
So Judy, to be clear, last month when we approved the budget and the fees, there was an error.
Yes, sir.
The error was that all golf rates are going up 3%.
Yes, sir.
What was not considered was that for the specific annual twilight package, the number of break-even rounds has been increased from 40 to 45, and the annual cart package was increased from 45 to 50 for the Twilight annual package.
Yes, sir.
Rates are still up 3%, and the reason the golf committee recommended this, along with Casey, is because when you take a look at the actual data, the annual membership of the Twilight golfers were at break-even number of rounds in August, meaning September, October, November, December were free rounds.
Little excessive.
So had there not been an error made, this would have been all approved last month.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Well, I'm not sure that's totally correct. That was a recommendation from the golf committee that the rounds up go to 40 to 45 and 45 to 50. When we had the budget meetings, what I indicated was a 3% increase across the board and did not include that difference in the 40 to 45 or the 45 to 50. First of all, I've never understood why the number of rounds and the number of carts are different. You have 45 rounds, you have 45 carts. I've asked that question for the last 5 years, and have never gotten an answer that made any sense. Two, these are Twilight people. Before this, when this started, when I was on the golf committee 6 years ago, when this started, because the afternoon tee sheets were empty for the most part after 2 o'clock. And we put in this Twilight rate for that purpose, and it boomed to the last year. In addition, last year we raised the Twilight rate 20%. With $700, it went to $840. That's just for the golf, a 20% increase. People move. This is, I guess, my bugaboo. People move here, golfers move here to enjoy their retirement, and we don't. Why do we care if somebody gets this rate, plays 60 rounds or only plays 30 rounds? They pay the fee. Then they can play as much golf as they want under this Twilight rate, if that's what in fact they choose. If you belong to a country club, you pay your dues. They don't care if you pay 100 rounds or 20 rounds. They don't come to you at 100 rounds and say, sorry, you're playing too much golf, please stop. This is basically what we're doing. You're playing too much golf after 2 o'clock, please stop. That's the way I look at it. I think this is a bad move. We raised it 20% last year. At the meeting of the Finance Committee, when we talked about rates, my recommendation was just a simple 3% across the board. I wasn't aware of this, or I missed it, one or the other. But the 3% increase we thought was fair, and I'll just put it simply, I am not in favor of this increase.
So I just have a question, and it's kind of going back even to prior years, because I know last year, for the all-you-can-play, not the Twilight, but the all-you-can-play, the break-even number of rounds was increased. So last year, we had, 5% increase in golf? And then for the all-you-can-play, it was basically what we're talking about here. It was 5% increase in per rounds, and oh, by the way, we are raising the number of rounds that is based on from whatever it was, 80 to 85 or something like that, which I kind of see as what this is doing. I'm still trying to decide where I'm going here too, Bob.
Yeah, but last year, just remember, last year we went from 35 rounds to 40 rounds. And now you're going to go another 5 rounds this year. So in the last two, so you're raising it from 35 to 40, now 40 to 45 as far as the golf goes. So that's, but plus the 20% increase total, and the 700 to 840 is simple math. This was a 20% increase in the greens fee last year. So
And
we're trying to keep the costs reasonable to the residents. I mean,
Yeah, and
it
then
just doesn't make a lot of sense
I
to
hear
me
you.
to raise it again that much 2 years in a row.
I hear you, and at the same time, you've been on the board now for 3 years. Even though we increase it, we try not to go crazy. We want it to be, we want all of our amenities to be affordable to our residents and to feel like it's a good deal. We really do. Like I said, I'm not sure how I'm going to vote on this one yet. I understand your point, I understand Steve's point, because it's the same discussion we had last year for the all-you-can-play.
No,
Steve's point, just a minute. Steve's point is that supposedly it's free after August for the people who use it a lot. It's not really free. The average price is, I don't know what's the average price? It's $28. And it breaks down to I forget what it breaks down to, but if they just played and paid as they played, they'd pay $28, just to use that number. If they play 50 rounds, their average price is $26. So they're not playing for free, they're just playing for a reduced rate because they've gone over the break-even point. So they're not really playing for free.
No.
I mean, they're just paying an average lesser rate. It's the same thing with the unlimited, the regular unlimited, which is now 85 rounds.
So I overheard somebody in the audience say something, are we trying to recoup our money, are we trying to make money, whatever. To me, it's all about, look, I hate to use the word subsidize, but, you know, there's a certain amount of money that goes towards golf, goes towards our other amenities every year. And Casey for golf and Simon for rec and all the other directors are looking at ways to reduce that subsidy, if you want to call it that. You know, a lot of us don't like to call it that. But in the end, that's what's happening here. And they're looking at their operations and they're saying, okay, what's the best thing to do? What's the fairest thing to do for all residents, not just the residents that are utilizing those amenities? So everybody needs to see this is not an easy decision. We are faced with this whenever it comes to any type of an increase in costs, an increase in prices. What's the right thing to do? So that is
And the other thing to mention out of this, with the Twilights on average breaking even in August, no one is forcing anyone to buy an annual pass. So if you don't like the increase in the break-even point of 5 rounds, when we're running deficits in golf, as we always will, because it is an amenity, to adjust the break-even point to reality, you don't have to buy the package. You can still pay as you go. If you do a prepay, it's 5% off the going rate. So as I view it, is the golf world is looking at what seems to be fair with people that buy annual packages, because you don't have to buy one. You can pay as you go.
My comment, even before I was on the board, I would go to the finance meeting to speak against raising on this fee. And that's because there's another impact. Before they implemented this, the restaurants were empty from 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock. Now, with this afternoon rate, you get golfers coming in there, having a drink, having an appetizer. So it's not just golf that it's going to impact. If these rounds get reduced, it also going to impact the restaurants. So, and I think this is a great for people that don't play a lot of golf. They're selecting to play in the afternoon to get the cheaper rate. Also, they also have limited hours. You have 2.5 hours right now, this time of year, to play golf. So you can't get a full 18 in this time of year. So I'm going to be voting against raising this amount of rounds to this. I'm with the 3% fee, but the amount of round raise, I don't think it's fair to these people, because you have about 5 to 6 months that limits what they can play and when they can play.
Well, we also have people who don't play less than the round, so those people actually want to pay more.
Yeah.
They only play 30 times, so they want to play more.
Casey, do you want to come up and have any comments on that?
So while Casey's coming up, quick question.
I'll let you sit here.
Was,
I'm getting out of here.
Question for you, Judy. So, a couple of points here. The Twilight golf rate is not designed for December. The Twilight golf rate is to fill our golf courses during the heat of summer. With all due respect, in 2019, when, Bob, you were on the GAC, we did 74,000 rounds. This year, we're going to do 112,000 rounds. I used to be able to take a left out of the Tanasi parking lot and not look, right? It's no longer that way. It doesn't matter if it's going to be an unlimited member, it's going to be a daily, a prepaid. That time's going to get filled. That's just the reality of Teleco Golf now. That time's going to get filled by an outside guest, one of our members, or a guest of our members. With the Twilight rate, it is only 45 rounds. Well, right now it's 40. The Golf Advisory Committee meets monthly. We encourage everyone to come. We've talked about this for over 20 hours. We had multiple budget meetings. So that's why this procedure was changed. We feel like this program still has added value at 45 and 50 cart rounds. Bob, the cart break even is different because every time you play golf On the golf course, there's not exactly an expense, but every time you run that golf cart, there is an added expense. So when you get past your break even, that's why it's higher with carts, because you are using the golf cart, you're tearing up the turf, the wear and tear on the golf cart, the batteries, et cetera, and we have to pay to charge it. So the Golf Advisory Committee presents this, again, to Steve's point. Steve sits in all those meetings. He was involved in all of that. You can just pay as you go. I've had 2 people reach out that caught this, 2 people. One of them, I averaged it out for them, 18-hole equivalents. They paid 72 twilight rounds and 63 twilight rounds. So they'd be us out of a few $1,000s. If everybody did that, then you don't want to add that up. It's a pretty big number. So as I sit here and look at ways to decrease our subsidy, and the GAC looks at ways to decrease the subsidy, this is one of the programs we came up with.
So Casey, a question for you or Steve. This has been, just to confirm, this has been reviewed by the Golf Advisory Committee, and they are supportive of this change?
Absolutely.
Okay.
7-0.
And it's going to seem like I'm waffling here, but this was supposed to be this way when we approved it last month.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. John, you got anything to say about it?
You know, I'm in favor of reducing subsidies. I don't like how this came about. It should have been part of the budgeting process. So that's the one thing I object to, is coming back after the fact and wanting to make this adjustment. So I'm kind of like with Marty, is like on the fence, but I see the logic in it, and like I said, I'm in favor of reducing subsidies where we can.
Mike, that's something you want to say on this subject?
Well, I didn't know Judy was going to finish so quickly. The solution to this problem, by the way, is if you shoot an 84, you need to start shooting 110, because your cost per shot will go down. All right? So no one should be bothered by this at all. So for you golfers that are scratch golfers, shoot around 80, and it'll all come out even. I had 2 questions for Judy. I didn't know she was going to finish so quickly. One is, you talked about efficiencies with the new program, the new
Yes,
computer
sir.
program. Could you expand on that? What kind of efficiencies are we looking at? Are they going to be monetary? Are they going to be able to see them as a monetary advantage?
I believe that it'll be more efficient, primarily the immediate savings and efficiencies that we're going to see are going to come from my side and Jim's side at the end of the month, because we have a phase where the books are closed, and then we have to go through all of these additional steps to get the spreadsheets manipulated on Excel, to produce the packages that go to the FAC and go to the board. So we spend a day and a half of just getting it from books are closed. Now we can see it, and we're manipulating it and turning it into an Excel spreadsheet that we can discuss during our meetings. Also, Jim and I will also both have daily access to the transactions as far as AP goes. We'll be able to drill down all the way down to the invoice level and review expenses. And if we have a question about something, if we think something has been misclassified, we can get those corrections made before the books are closed, instead of having to go to the meetings and be like, well, okay, this is in the wrong place. We discovered this was wrong, and now we'll have to reclass. So there's just a lot of that kind of reclassification activity that has to go on after the fact, which adds to inefficiencies. Same with the budget process. Massively, it's all Excel spreadsheets, fraught with human error, fraught with opportunity to get things wrong. We want to improve the likelihood that we're going to get it right, and we can spend more time worrying about what numbers we're putting in it instead of checking the formulas to make sure it's adding across and down and combining 10 spreadsheets correctly. It's going to be so much more efficient in that regard. We'll also be able to create, to customize packages of reports that will come together, and like when the books are closed, boom, we should be able to automatically create those packages that go out to the board and the FAC. So those are the early efficiencies that we're going to see. And then in the subsequent phases, we hope to dive into those point of sales plugins and see if we can't get them. Initially, there's not, the way Sage has explained it to us is you crawl, walk, run. So you build on your efficiencies and your automation. And so we've got to
Good.
work through that
Good.
next. That'll be phase 2.
Okay.
And then we'll move on from there and hope to bring you guys some better visibility into your own. That's the ultimate goal, is we want great things for you guys. We want you all to be able to go to one page, and it will be part of the project,
It's also
I assure you.
efficiencies and man-hours.
Well, that's what I was
Overtime.
getting to, and I
Yeah, it's
appreciate what
efficiency
she's
and-
saying.
it's efficiencies
Has it
and
been
man-hours.
monetized?
Well, until it's unpaid overtime.
Well, that's what I'm looking for here, is
Yeah.
you're spending a lot of money. I'm all for upgrading this, by the way, because I think it's very old architecture that we're working with, and it's terrible. We need to have an upgrade. So what I'm looking for, when I see something like this, an expenditure of, was it $240,000 plus $90,000 a year for 3 years, I would like to see some monetization of the efficiencies and the improvements you're making, either through accuracy, speed, whatever it is, there's got to be. You just said overtime. So there's a number you can put to overtime.
Sure. And let me
we
give
can put
you
to that.
another issue that she touched on, but she didn't really put it in time. When they've closed the books, let's say they close on the 3rd. Well, we're never done with those until the 7th. Now, that's how many days, 3 days, 4 days, that we're having to go through every single spreadsheet, make sure it's working, make sure it's there, because it's all manual. Everybody's got to touch it.
That's what you said, speed.
And what are the odds? So in terms of this, when we close the books, the next morning we're running that report, not 4 days later.
Right, well, I understand that, and that's what
Yeah.
you said. She
Yeah.
said speed and accuracy.
Correct.
Which I think is wonderful, but it can be monetized, is what I'm
Absolutely.
trying to tell you.
Oh,
So when you
nobody
stand up here and
understands
ask
that
for
better than I.
$240,000, and we have the discussion, you can easily point to some sort of savings through
Sure.
speed and accuracy, but you didn't do that. That's my question. You should be looking at doing that.
Right.
I'm all for this, but
Yeah.
if you were standing in front of me trying to sell that, I'd ask the same questions. Tell me
Phase-
what you're saving,
Yeah.
monetize it. And you
Phase-
didn't do that.
Phase 1 is primarily involving salaried
Right.
individuals. Phase 2
Okay.
will bring some
That's
of those
fine.
savings when we get around to automating
Right.
some of those point of sales.
Well, let's see a monetization when we start
Yeah,
to spend this
that-
money. Relative to client input, or as you would say, it's easier for us as clients to get in and out. When you do a presentation like that and ask for $240,000, you should be looking at features and benefits. So the benefit is this, the feature is this, the benefit is this. So at some point in time, because every feature you put into a computer program like this increases the cost. Every little tag, every little drop-down screen increases the cost. So the question is, do we have more features than we're going to use? Because I would suggest you do that. I don't think anybody in the village has said, I'd like to have more visibility to my account online. Because we can't even get them online to do anything.
Well,
They just don't go online.
So-
John laughed, he knows that. He
So-
doesn't go online.
so all these things have modules we can choose to use or
That's my
not
point.
use. And we're only gonna use, we're implementing so many modules at so many times.
All right.
So that's all part of it. The other thing what you have to understand today, when they go to close the books, they take dumps from all these, it says spread, combine it into one manual spreadsheet, then upload that to the
I get
IBM
that.
system. That takes days of that data.
I get that.
What we're gonna be able to do in phase 2, that stuff will go directly into the system.
We talked about speed and accuracy.
Yeah, and that's exactly what.
And that's what that is.
That's huge, yeah.
And I get to that. I'm talking about features and benefits.
And there
I
are.
would like to see somewhere where you've gone out and at least asked the village, do you want more visibility to your accounts? And if you do, it's going to cost this much more in a module to give it to you.
Yep.
We've never seen that. And you've all said, well, this will give us more visibility. I sat back here and said, I never asked for it.
Well,
So I don't know.
I
maybe
understand.
somebody did.
I think your point is well made.
It's well made.
And
Last question then for Judy
Okay.
is, I saw a number on one of your charts, $706,000 of, was that water funding?
That's the water sewer infrastructure asset.
Is
That's
that the 80
water-
bucks? Is that the $80?
That's the ending balance, yes,
Okay,
sir.
so we now have, as you said, Mr. Pillsbury, that we have the program on hold. We're not going to do anything now until we actually figure out what we're going to do. Do we have the $80 on hold as well?
First, not Chet Pillsbury's decision.
Well,
You made the comment, so that's why I aimed at you.
I appreciate
So,
that, but I
anyway,
don't
it would
want
be
anybody to
interesting know
assume
if we
that
put
I
the
wave my
program on
magic
hold.
wand and that
We put
starts
the
or stops.
program on hold. We ought to put the $80 on hold till we know what we're spending it for. All right? I think that would be a good, fair thing to do. But that's up to you guys. Thank you.
I'd like to make two comments. Number one, you can't monetize the risk of a failure of your accounting system. And we know there is a day coming where this system will fail and it cannot be repaired. There's no support. So that's one item. The second thing that you can't monetize is the amount of time that I know I spend as an FAC member and the FAC members spend because of having to look at this after 5 o'clock when the reports finally get issued because of the amount of gyrations and efforts that have to go through to be able to put the numbers together. That is not a knock against Judy or Jim or the accounting staff. It's the reality of what they're dealing with. And so I, as an unpaid volunteer on the FAC, and I, as an unpaid volunteer on this board, along with your hardworking FAC members, spend a considerable amount of time digesting, reviewing, questioning the data, and that is having to be done basically at night because of the amount of time it takes to put the numbers together. The salary I get, Mark, for working here is zero, same as all the other board members. I'm sharing with you the perspective of there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained, and it will give us far better analysis time and what I'd say foundation than what we have today.
I agree with you, Mike. There are a lot to be looked at, but some of this can be monetized. We all know it. We've done it in our old jobs before we retired. Monetize the efficiencies and benefits of a program, whether it's $240 or $37 million. Doesn't matter.
Well, I guess I would make a comment here that we're never going to get to payback on this investment per se by trying to monetize, hours saved. Back when I started on FAC, January 21, this was the #1 risk to the POA. In the beginning of 21, because we have a system that was not supported in 1998. And had it gone down in the middle of a month, we'd be back to green ledger paper trying to do our accounting. So it's beyond trying to monetize the return on this investment. It's a major risk to the organization. And I can only speak to the effort that goes into now bringing food service in-house and what it takes to get the data from Aloha into our accounting system, 100% manual. Every day they've got to take printed reports and somehow enter that data correctly into our systems. And we've pointed out in many meetings this year, there's been a lot of errors because you're hand typing a whole bunch of numbers into the system every month. It's just it's a critical risk to the organization. So we can try to monetize what we can, but that's not the reason. We're not trying to get a return on this investment. It's just getting us to maybe the year 2010 as far as technology goes, and that's about it.
So
Getting
for
out of the
layman's-
80s.
For layman's.
Point of order.
Excuse me.
We were talking about golf rate updates,
Okay.
and all of a sudden we're
That's
off
fine. I
on
came up here to
justifying
talk
this,
about
so
that.
I suggest we get about doing the agenda.
Do you want to go talk about golf?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
So, what have we been doing to close up the gap in subsidies?
Well, basically, the increase in rounds has closed that gap considerably.
Right, and we've had an increase in rounds.
Right, that's,
So, have we even looked at charging outside the community, people who come in from outside the community more money than we charge the members here?
that's been increased every year.
How much? I mean,
$82.50 next year.
yeah, but it's 100 everywhere else. Wind River, Rarity Bay.
And they were, I'm not going to tell you who, but near us, they were down 27% in outside guest play. So we don't want to price ourselves out of the market, but we definitely want to capitalize on people that come in. For reference, that's 6,250 golfers a year, so at $82.50. We'll bring in 6,250 guest of members, and then we'll run about 92,000 of our members through our facility. So it's a very minimal number, about 13% of our play is
So
actual
what is
guest
the actual
play.
percentage more that we charge outside members?
Yeah, a member
I can't see that.
rate is 51.25 next year. Guest of a member is 62, and outside guest, meaning a rack rate, which is you're playing at our facilities unaccompanied by a member, is 82.50.
Okay, what's the majority of people that come here? Is it people with members?
87% of our play is member play, 6.5% of our play is guest of members, and 6.5% is unaccompanied.
So it's pretty equal.
It is.
Did we raise anything on them this year?
3%. 3%.
Just 3%. I don't know. I think we should do a little bit more. Maybe not as high as everyone else, but a little bit helps.
Either way you guys go, I was just doing some quick math. This is a difference of $30,000. So
Well, and I think.
based on our budget and
It
number
goes
of
back
people.
to, we've got a committed group of people on the advisory committee that Steve's a liaison to, and they talk about this all the time.
Every meeting.
And this is the recommendation coming from them, and I think that certainly holds a lot of weight.
Steve actually asked me last year to change the way we do our monthly rounds report to show these annuals. So that's listed on every single spreadsheet in each one of my presentations at GACs over the last 2 years as well.
Do we have a motion? No.
I make a motion to accept the recommended change to what was presented originally, which is a 3% increase in rates on Twilight, with the increase in the break-even rounds as presented by Judy.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion by the board members? Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff.
That's okay. I'm going to talk hopefully about the cost side. I appreciate the revenue side. We got revenue and we got expenses, right? Have we ever done an outsourcing study of our golf operations?
Not that I'm aware of.
So,
Other than, Casey,
When
we
you
set the
say
rates, when we set the rates, we look at the rates of other places in the area.
Benchmarking?
which
that's the revenue. Got it?
And then we look at what they're charging versus what we're charging,
Right.
so that we're not outpricing ourselves.
Right.
So, but that isn't what you mean when you say outsourcing. When I hear you say outsourcing, that means giving up our golf courses for somebody else to run.
No, back in the day, we used to write these proposals for my clients, right? And if you want to go get a true picture of what it costs to run an operation, you run a process. You do an RFP. You get 3 proposals from professional golf operation management companies, and you say what they would charge us for the same amount of costs that we have right now in our golf operations. So then what you get is you get a true picture. For example, my understanding, could be wrong, this is all anecdotal at this point, is that the other golf courses in the vicinity are professionally managed. They don't own them and operate them themselves.
No, that's not true. I'm sorry.
Okay, which ones are not?
All of them run their own.
No, I'm saying they're professionally managed by third party.
Okay, I don't know anybody who has an outside third party running theirs. I mean, Casey would have to speak to this because I'm not the authority by any shade, but I know that all the ones that I am aware of.
So they own their golf operations?
Everybody owns their own and runs it themselves.
Okay, well, I stand corrected. Someone had given me that information. My point is that we don't know what our cost structure, if it's a good cost structure at this point. Where can we take costs out? We don't know. We always, I appreciate that. I'm a golfer. I think what you're doing is great here. Good discussion on the revenue side. I'd like to see a study of what the cost structure looks like if we had it professionally managed. We don't have to do it. We just see how they would run the operation vis-a-vis what we're doing.
Understood.
Anyway, that's my
Understood.
input on the golf. Are we still able to talk about other things?
No, not yet.
We got a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor.
We'll talk about the other things in a minute.
Okay.
We're going to give you plenty of time.
Okay, guys, we got to get to a vote here sooner or later.
Real quick, Avalon, I believe, was sold about 4 or 5 years ago to an outside. In fact, they put it on for an auction to sell Avalon Golf Course. Only 2 people showed up to bid on it, and they eventually sold Avalon, and I think it was almost it was like a Christmas sale. They got it very cheaply. So the guys that own Avalon don't live in Avalon, and Avalon no longer owns that golf course. To my understanding, that's what's happened.
I wouldn't know. I can't answer that.
Well-
Casey can, but I wouldn't know that one way or the other.
Yeah, I think all Telco, again,
Oh, there he is, right in front of me.
yeah.
Is that right, Casey?
2 points. One, I would think our professional services, as well as the Tennessee Turfgrass Association and a Golf Course Superintendents of America, certified professional. Myself as a PGA Class A, Adam Jacob as a PGA Class A, Lucas Forstrom as a PGA Class A. Those are our professionals that we have working on staff, coming forward with you with this request, telling you this is what we think is best for golf and our subsidy. 2, other communities, yes, they've gone through fire sales, have private owners. We're not set up for that. We have a board, we're a POA. Within Teleco Golf, there is no initiation, and your monthly dues that you pay is, I'm not sure what golf percentage of the pie is in 2025, but it's very minimal compared to others. Foxton Country Club is $25,000 golf
It's a
initiation
private
right
course.
now. It is a private course, yes.
So it's like compare private to semi-public.
I would say our golf courses are just as good.
I agree with you. I'm not debating whether,
So-
I think our golf courses are fantastic, by the way. I just want to make sure that you have the correct information, and the information is, Avalon, I know for sure, is run by a third party. And there might be some more, and maybe you know, Casey, but I thought Wind River was, because that used to be I can't remember the guy, Ross property, and he went belly up, and he sold it out. So I think the golf course was sold to a
I
private
think they're both single
entity.
owners now.
So,
Yeah,
I'm
they're
sorry?
they're single owners.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I'll call the question. On the increases as outlined by Judy, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? The increase is approved 4-2. The next item on the agenda, thank you, Casey. The certification of the POA Board election. Mr. Groman. I guess the chairman of the election committee.
Yes, we met on the Friday after the election was closed, and we tabulated the results, and there was 3 members of the team, but unfortunately Steve wasn't there. I am the assistant
Vice Chair.
vice chair of that committee, so I will make a motion that we approve the election results from 2024.
And the elected members are?
Are Joel Reed and Michael Latke.
Okay. All right, motion made and second. Any discussion on the board on the election? I would note that the election committee did ask if there are any anomalies in the election process, and as reported, there were none.
None.
So all in favor of approving the election, Mr. Lackey and Mr. Reed, raise your hand. Thank you. All opposed? There are none. Mr. Lackey and Mr. Reed are certified as board members. Their term commences January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2027, if my math is correct. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention before we go to other, and we'll let everyone have their say in the others that they want, is the reserve funding bill. We've all heard about the reserve funding bill over the years and the changes and proposals, et cetera, et cetera. The board has been discussing this bill, discussing the reserve funding, and the board has concluded to make a change. The previous bill included a percentage, 0.5% of the sales price. After numerous discussions with number of people and the comments from the last few years, the bill that we're going to propose is a flat $5,000 buy-in fee. So it's similar to Verde Bay has $25,000. When Tennessee National, I think, is $50,000. Other places, so it's a $5,000. Instead of a percentage, it's going to be a flat fee of $5,000. This has also been talked to. There are a number of realtors. There was a meeting with 20 realtors who also agreed that that's the better way to go versus trying to figure out a percentage, et cetera, et cetera. Now, on this, we're going to have a town hall in the first part of January, prior to the board meeting on January 15th. So that we're going to put this out there. People can come to this town hall. I believe the date we picked, Beth, was June what? June 9th? January 9th, not June. January 9th. we're going to, just on the reserve funding bill, so everyone can have their say as what they think, yes, no, maybe. Good idea, going from a percentage to the flat fee. Again, it's another source of revenue. It's going to be paid for by the buyer of the property. There's going to be an exception carved out for people who presently live in the village. So if you live in the village and you want to sell your house and downsize or upsize, there's going to be an exception carved out with a time period, You have to live here 2 years, which is similar to the IRS rules when you want to sell a house in the capital gains sort of situation, or the fee for an exemption if you're a senior. So that's not totally fleshed out, the wording, but there will be an exception if you live in the village and you're downsizing or you're upsizing, that you will not have to pay the fee for your new house. So that's, again, going to be the subject of a town hall in early January, so it can be acted on by the board at the January meeting, because all bills in the legislature have to be in by January 31st. So that gives us time to hear from the residents about this. The board then has to make a decision at the January meeting on this, and if we go forward, it'll be in the legislature for the next session. So this is just for information at this time. I'm telling you what's going to happen, how the process is going to work. We're not doing anything today. We're just telling you there's been a change from the percentage to a flat fee.
So Bob, on that note, the board has decided to change, to give the town halls a week before the board meetings, so that people can, and it'll be the same agenda as what's in the board meeting, so people have a week to comment, and the board be able to be able to get people's responses to it in advance before we vote. And so we can actually get better information, research information, and respond to people's questions at the board meetings. But the town halls will give you an advantage to be ahead of time, because we know a lot of times we've had some complaints, well, you're getting ready to vote on it anyway, we haven't had a chance to discuss it. We want to give you that opportunity. So, and this is one way we're going to change it.
Two other points on this, if we can. One, we're going to post a proposed text for this bill on the POA website. That should be up in the next couple of days, something like that. Okay, the second thing is the exception that was in the bill before remains there in terms of if the property transfer is related to an inheritance. Under Tennessee law, there is a definition of what relative is, and you can go out and look at that. Or if it's a transfer into a trust type situation where you're setting up a trust and it goes from individual ownership into a trust, those would be accepted or waived transactions where there would not be a fee charged. Okay.
Also, that bill is listed in the first paragraph of our bill. That statute is listed in the first paragraph of our bill, and that statute is also online so that you can review the language in that as well.
I think you just answered my question. We got to get a state law passed to do the exit or entrance fees, right?
It's not an exit fee.
Okay.
Don't call it an exit fee.
I'm sorry.
It's a reserve funding fee.
By the way, I think it's a great idea. It should have passed the first time. Had it been communicated a little better, might have. But it was a great idea, great money, great way to do it. We lost, I don't know how much money over the last 2 years by not doing it.
$2 million
so.
anyways.
Well, communicate a little better.
So to that, is communication is one thing, seeking to understand is another. So
Larry Rolap, within that bill, will that also include LLCs?
Anything where it's within a family. I don't believe an LLC would qualify under that statute, but I'll defer to our attorney on that for sure.
The defined, the transfer definition would exempt, and there's three components: an individual who's related to the owner, and related is a defined term, and it talks about all the specific familial relations, an heir, which of course would be through the estate planning process, estate succession process, and a business entity in which the owner holds an ownership interest.
Perfect.
So if you transfer to an LLC in which you are a member or owner, that would be an exempt transaction.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Now down to the other section. Are there any other matters from the board members?
I do have one.
Okay.
You have my picture up there. I haven't even talked to any of you guys about this yet. I have talked to Chet about this. So you may or may not be aware of an invasive plant in the lake. It's called hydrilla. The watershed group is familiar with this. It's been spreading in Tellico Lake. They have it in Rarity Bay. They have it in Watts Bar. But what it is, it's a very fast-growing plant in the water, and your propeller can get hung up in it. Jet skis will take pieces of it and spread it. So it's really invasive. And it's, one of the things that I talked to the president of Water, David Flanagan, about, he says, I don't want to bring it up and have people get hysterical about it. So I just want to bring your attention to it, that it is in our lake, and that we need to be aware of it, and it's probably going to be a private property issue. So if you have a dock on the lake, like you see this here, there are companies out there that have like herbicides and other treatments to control it. So more to come on that. We're going to have a public session on this just to educate people further on it. His comment to me was, this has been going on at Watts Bar for several years. They've been treating it, and he said it's basically a non-issue. But again, we all just need to be aware of it and figure out, okay, what it is that we need to do as property owners, especially property owners on the lake. And it's not just limited to the property owners on the lake, because it's everybody that uses the lake and goes out and swims in it and everything. Now, this stuff thrives in water less than 10 feet, I believe, is what they said. So 10 feet or less, that's where they're seeing it. So again, more to come, and the treatments are usually like in the June, July, August time frame, because that's when it really starts taking off every year. But this is a picture by Tanasi. So I have a friend that lives in that cove at Tanasi, and so this is across the water from like where the marina is. And you can see it when the water level came down. You can see this, and it is. And so I looked off the back of my dock. I live further north, and I probably would have never noticed it, but since I was looking for it, I saw it. And way off the back, I could see it looked like a little bushy thing growing, and then I could see little dots of them all along the shore, or somewhat along the shore. So again, don't want to create a hysteria about it, but I believe it is something we all need to be aware of and say, okay, is it something that we need to treat? So again, more to come.
The one other thing that was added to that, I spoke with David too, as well, as some of these areas where they have high growth in and around docks. I'm not being funny. They actually have a mower that they use, drop down in the water to cut this stuff back down at the mud level. It is crazy, but that's what he described, is they bring in a mower, because there is a concern that there's all kind of herbicides that'll kill it, but they also kill everything else. And so they're trying to find ways that are not as invasive to the rest of the community as well.
Yeah, because, if you put something like a herbicide right off the back of your dock and then your grandkids come over and swim, yeah, we're all concerned about that. Or if you're drawing water to irrigate your yard, those are things that we've got to be very comfortable with. So.
Yeah, I know I had this issue in a lake in Michigan we were on, where we were paying to treat it every year, and they had the mower that came out there and harvested it and stuff like that. But it can be a huge issue for boating, especially with jet skis.
So just to add, and I'm no expert on this, but I've heard some concerns expressed about some of the potential treatments and the toxicity associated with those. So I know that there are companies out there that are soliciting to go ahead and do a treatment now. I just would urge everybody to ask questions and understand what you're getting as a treatment, and to the point that was just mentioned, understand what you're putting in the water.
Yeah, and it does no good to treat right now anyway. So that's why now is a really good time to bone up on it, to really understand it, and to be ready to do what we need to do come June, which is when they do start treating it.
Yes, sir.
Fred Toucher, two questions. The first is, does a property owner have the right, I'm just asking as for my personal knowledge, to treat stuff in the water without getting approval?
That's a good question, Fred, and I didn't ask that specific question, but when I did talk to David, he said the TVA is not, TVA, TRDA are not going to get involved with any property in front of residences or corporations. They will, if there's issues at boat launches, they will take care of that. So otherwise, he said, and I think the precedent's been set in some of these other areas where they're already doing it.
Could the board find out if first of all, if it's a property owner's responsibility? Secondly, if the property owner has the right to do it, or does they have to get some kind of approval? And the third thing is, are you guys going to be able to investigate some treatments and have a recommendation so we don't unknowingly poison our grandchildren?
So, yeah, let me speak to that one, and I'll put this on my to-do list. I'll get David to give us an answer about who has permission to do what. And at this point, when I spoke with him personally, he basically said TVA's going, well, we'll see what works. We don't know yet. And so at that point, because what Marty said is correct, the homeowner has the responsibility, not them, they're still going to have to tell you what you can and cannot use. So I'll get that information, and I'm planning on having a town hall on this later in the year when there's more information specifically about that, to kind of get that out to everybody and get it from the professionals who understand. Yes, sir.
I moved here from Chickamauga Lake. I lived 20 years on Chickamauga Lake, and we had the same problem. So it's 20, 25 years old.
It's coming up the river.
It's scattered when it gets, you were talking about this mower. The mower, yeah, it'll take it off to where you don't see it, but it just makes it loose to spread quicker. But what we had, the way it worked when I lived there, we moved here in 2018, so it may change, but the subdivision that I lived in had to get a permit, or the individual homeowners can get a permit, but it made it easier when the subdivision as a whole got the permit from TVA to treat it. And TVA either recommended, I wasn't that close to the details of that, but TVA either recommended certain vendors or approved that permit was to use certain vendors. The vendor may have helped you get the permit. I don't remember the.
I'll look into that and get an answer for you, because that's probably going to be the answer. Is they're going to say, you as a community have the right to use X and to take care of this.
But the homeowner has to contract individually with
Sure.
the person doing the treatment. And they go around these little John boats, and in 15 minutes they treat your dock, and it costs $600 or $800, and one treatment a year, and it's a certain time early in the summer.
Sure.
But that's what's involved.
Yep. Okay, I'd like to point out.
I got to clarify that.
Okay.
You don't own that as a property owner. That water is not yours.
And that's why TVA has to
And that's
get
why
that.
TVA. So
Absolutely.
I wouldn't put anything in it, because if you put anything in it and it kills fish, you're going to be in worse trouble.
So
It's
exactly why we brought it up, right? We brought it up for people's
I think it's a
knowledge.
great idea.
We are not saying to do anything. We're saying more to come.
No, I didn't say you were.
I know
say
you didn't.
other people came up and
I'm
said.
just putting it.
This gentleman came up and said, can a homeowner do that? Since the homeowner doesn't own that. That's my clarification. Let TVA handle it. And yeah, it's a problem, and they know what to do. I wouldn't put anything in the water if you
Yeah, no,
cause another problem.
I'm not suggesting anybody touch this project until we find out a better idea.
Okay, all right, we're now at other items are on the agenda. Anyone who wishes to speak to those items are on the agenda. Your name, please, ma'am, please.
I do. My name is Holly Seguin. I'm with the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, and I just wanted to say something about the Warriors at Ease program, because Simon didn't really talk about it. And for people who don't know what it is a program that meets here at the Yacht Club on Friday mornings, and it is for first responders, military, current military, as well as veterans. And it's a program that focuses on wellness, meditation, and yoga. And it is a fantastic program that really has helped a lot of people. And it's a safe space for those people to come and really connect and get a mind-body connection. So, and it is open to anyone who is here. You don't have to be a member of Parks and Rec. It's free. So, and 8:30 Friday mornings. I just wanted to let people know about it because it's a really terrific program.
Thank you very much.
I'm back. I'm going to be brief. You'll like it. As you know, I've been largely responsible for the petition that's gone around the last 5 weeks, and I represent a large core of the village. I think you've probably gathered that by now. We're asking you to put this tank on hold, to correct the issues, not put a Band-Aid on it, and to look at the alternatives. And we believe that alternative is TAP 2.0, as you were presented last week. I do have a few questions, and I know Chet answered some of those questions, and Matt answered some of them as well. But are you planning a town hall regarding this tank?
I think the town hall is going to be about what Jacobs comes back with, because I don't want to sit here and tell you the tank's off, the tank's on, we're going to move the tank somewhere else. I don't know, because they have not come back and told us that. And there was other things brought up. There was other options. There are other options that haven't even been discussed yet that we've run into in the recent few days. And so if I were to be blunt with you, I don't have an answer for you, but the moment we do, we will have a town hall if we have to poise a special one. It's
Okay.
beyond that. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. It will not be done in the dark.
Okay. You said earlier that you had several utilities on property that we did not own, but last month you said we couldn't build a structure on a property that we did not own. Am I correct that TRDA
No,
owns that
you
property?
missed my point. TRDA, we lease that land. It is in all practical purposes. It's like I have a mortgage on my house, but I own that land. I can do with it what I want. That's at least legal anyway. So at that point, anything outside of the POA, outside of the lease agreement, because these are all considered common property. The TRDA leased property is considered common property. I can't sell it. I can lease it, but I can't sell it, and I can't move that away from the POA as a property owner. You pay for that lease.
So
Therefore,
we are leasing that property currently here at the lift station from TRDA?
We're leasing, it's all over. All the pump stations at Tokwa, it's
Okay.
on TRDA.
Okay.
Pump stations at
Okay.
Block.
But I think the point that needs to be made is eventually that lease becomes owned
By us.
POA property in 2044.
2044?
Yes.
Once the last lease payment is made, the property will automatically be conveyed to the POA.
And that's in 2044? Okay. The 91 homes that were looked at with this survey, I understand there were 927 surveys completed. That's a small percentage of the homes here in the village.
So we need to be clear. The only reason those were singled out is because those were ones based on that survey that specifically said, I think my home's a problem.
Right.
That's why we went there first, just to see what
I
do we got.
understand. But what I'm getting
So, no,
at-
it's not the rest of the community. There's a bunch more.
Right, exactly. But my point that I'm making, before you interrupted me, is there were only 927 that responded to that survey. Why was that? You know why it was? Because it was poorly communicated. I've talked to hundreds of people who have no clue about that survey.
It wasn't our survey, ma'am. It was done on Nextdoor by an individual here in the community. It wasn't ours. I don't disagree with you,
Okay.
but I'm just saying it wasn't ours.
So don't you think it would be a good point to start with, to do another survey, so that the people here in the community can be aware of it, made aware of it, and respond to the I&I issues that they may or may not have in their backyard?
Sure, why not?
Okay. I spoke to an individual last Saturday night who says he's been waiting 2 years on the Public Works Department to come out and correct his lid and correct the I&I issues with his tank. Now, Matt, I'll be happy to discuss that with you privately, but just to bring the board up to date, there are people who have reported problems with their I&I and with their grinder tanks. And this person has been waiting 2 years. He had an appointment scheduled. They've been out and looked at it, but he had an appointment scheduled for it to be repaired, and they never showed up.
Yeah,
So-
I don't have an answer for that. Matt will have to direct that one.
Yeah.
And we'll look it up. If you give him the address, we'll take care of it.
Okay. My point in bringing this up is that the Public Works Department, we as a board, as a community, need to develop some sort of schedule to maintain these grinder pumps.
Okay, let me stop you right there for a second. Yes, is the short answer. We have to be able to go out and review these. No homeowner should wait 2 years to have anything fixed. No argument there at all. The grinder pumps are plug and play. It's not like we can go out once a month and put grease on the bearings and make it last longer. It goes till it dies. And so maintaining those, now it's a different story if you're going to say we need to go by every so often and see that the homeowner has not changed the landscaping where now they have a swimming pool around it instead of it like it was originally. That's all fair. But in terms of a maintenance process, and Matt, you can stop me if I'm gone down a different road, but there is no true maintenance as like you take your car in, you change the oil. That's all maintenance. That doesn't exist here. You drop it in, it runs. When it burns up, you pull it out, you put a new one in.
However, if you went around periodically and looked at these lids, you would have a much better idea as to how many there are in the village that are below grade.
Well, we have to have a
inspect it.
process to do that anyway.
and a
That's
little
not
bit-
going
But it's
away.
not being done.
But a little bit earlier, when Matt was up, he was explaining how they're putting together that whole process.
And that's
So
great.
yes,
That's
it's being
great.
worked on.
So my next question is, how much is in the budget, and this is probably Judy's question to answer, how much is in the budget next year for I&I repairs and inspections?
Actually, I'm looking at Matt over there, he's checking his head, none.
See?
It's not.
But it isn't like it can't be added.
Okay. It's a budget item then that needs to be added, because, which brings me to my next question. Was it just a pure oversight that the 2021 Jacobs Engineering Report was not published in TV?
I have no idea on that one. I wasn't here.
Well,
That
yeah,
one I can't
That's
answer.
an easy answer for you, but I'm asking it to other board members. Was that just an oversight? And it may have been, but there was an oversight because that report has never been published, and it was an even further oversight that the I&I issues that were recommended in that report be addressed have never been addressed.
Well, I have to correct you on that, and there is a timing issue here. But you may or may not be aware of that at that period of time, the Public Works at that time went out and did 500 and change. I've heard 560, I've heard 570. They did 500 and something.
Of what?
And, of changing tanks, evaluating them,
And how
changing
did they
the
know
lids.
which tank lids to
Well,
change?
No, let's be specific. The 500, what we believe, what we were told happened was they went through and added risers to those tanks.
And how did they know which tanks to add risers to?
Well,
Did they go around and inspect?
Unfortunately,
Yes.
if I may finish,
You weren't here.
unfortunately, some of those records were destroyed in a fire. There is and none of us sitting here today can change that. The other thing that I believe happened is we've had some turnover in our public works employees, and like anything else, you lose some information when you turn employees over. But PSAC, Public Services Advisory Committees, members have been deeply involved in reviewing a lot of this. The Jacobs report is online. It's on the POA website. It's available for any resident to go and see.
And
and
where can
read.
we find that?
If you look, and I'm not going to tell you it's easy, but if you go to, under the Department of Public Works, and, yes. Yeah.
Under
So-
Public Works?
Yes.
Okay.
Reports and documents.
So let's be clear. Here's what you're really saying, unless I'm misunderstanding you entirely. We should be putting a plan together to address I&I directly, and I'm going to say this whether you agree with it or not, regardless of what ends up with the tank one way or the other.
Absolutely.
So
I
that's
agree.
one. So then, once we've put that together, it will tell us, we need X number of staff, or we don't. Or we need
Or
X
sub it
number
out.
of money, or we don't. But we will have a plan that says, this is how we're marching, this is what it will take. It will be presented to the board to vote on because it will ask for more. And we will have to make that decision at that point. Because there's never been a time, we have to take, a specific plan that I'm aware of anyway. This has to be done. Once it's done, we'll act on it. We've already got some data. One of the things that these two guys didn't talk about is that we need a way to prove this. And what I mean by that is, we could go out and do 1,000, but if we don't have a way of metering what's going through the pipe in a specific way, because right now what happens is if we have a water event and we have what is referred to as an I&I event, right? The only way we know that is all the pumps are spinning. They never cycle down. They just go nonstop, trying to keep up. So that's our I&I event. Even if I did 1,000 of those and it's still doing it, I don't know if I've even affected it or not. So we have to find ways to monitor this because I don't want to chase my tail about that area over there is brand new, so I'm not going to look at them. I don't know. They could still have an I&I issue. So if we can find ways to meter this, which we're testing right now, to say, we made this fix, we had a water event, the volume came through the pipe less, therefore we've affected something. If we make those changes and we look at a day when it's dry and you have a normal flow and then we have a water event and there's no difference, the odds are similar, or at least reasonable, that didn't affect anything.
Well, I'm happy to hear that you say you want to put a plan together and meter this issue, because a month ago, you were ready to put a tank in, and...
Okay, I need to be clear, guys. Everybody keeps looking at me like I have this magic wand. There's 7 other gentlemen in this room who, when I come to them and say, I'm not an engineer, I say, here's what the engineer says we need to do. Now, whether everybody wants to argue with that, I don't know.
We'll put this on the entire board. I'm not saying just you. But a month ago, it appeared to all of us that you were ready to put a tank in. And whether you're a paid employee or you're a volunteer, you still work for all of us.
Sure.
And all of us need to be educated with a town hall. We need to be aware of decisions like this that are being made. In your original TAP paper that I saw, tell me how you can say that putting a wastewater tank in our community and in Kahiti will help preserve the quality of life, and I'm quoting from this, and protect property values. That's the first line in this. How can this protect property values and preserve our quality of life? It's going to be disastrous for our property value.
It would be more disastrous if the system failed.
By a long shot.
That's why we need to look at all the alternatives, and I'm not
I don't
convinced that you have.
disagree with you at all.
Well,
Not
I'm
at
glad
all.
to hear that you're willing now to look at the alternatives, because I think that's where we need to start. To put a storage tank, or as I like to call it, a giant stink tank in the middle of our community is an assault. It's an assault on our community and an insult to our intelligence, and I said that last month. Finally, I'll say, if it comes to a tank, and there's no other option, and we've exhausted all the alternatives, and you have to vote, Ed, and I'm going to show you approximately, no approximation to it, we've been collecting petitions now for about 5 weeks. 2,000 petitions we have signed here.
Excellent. Excellent.
And these are the people...
This represents your oversight committee.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot more.
Yeah.
Sure.
We're our own oversight committee to that. We feel like it would be a conflict of interest, Ed, for you to vote on any matter regarding this tank if it involves a grant. Because I understand you retired from Ernst & Young. Ernst & Young handles the grant for this particular project, and you may not feel it's a conflict. I understand that. I do.
Let me answer that. First off, I was an internal employee of Ernst & Young. Ernst & Young firewalls internal employees from all the consulting end of it for conflict of interest. Secondly, I had no interest. I retired in 2019, at October of 2019 from Ernst & Young. So this grant came about in 2021. I have no influence. I I worked out of the Atlanta office, so anybody that came up from the Chattanooga office, the only time I ever seen them was at a holiday party. So,
Well-
there was no conflict of interest here, and anybody, I take that as a personal insult, because
Well,
I
and
would
I'm
excuse
sorry you
myself
do.
that there was. But I was an internal employee, I was not, and my especially was IT, and I handled 300,000 people for them in over 100 countries for their back-end Skype, Teams, and email. So the only time I got involved with a partner was, hey, we're going to upgrade your office in London, France, or whatever. That's the only time I got involved.
I understand.
So this rumor going around is totally wrong and too ill-advised. So I'd like to stop it now.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Ed, and I appreciate that, but as a gesture of good faith, being on a board such as this. No, excuse me, let me
Hold on, we
finish.
have other advisory committees that work for you. Why? You want them to,
You know, you want me to name names while I'm standing
No,
up
no,
here?
I'm
I can't.
just saying, so anybody that ever worked or partnered with any other company, you want them to exclude themselves?
I'm just
and
saying,
their
if this
expertise?
comes to a vote and there's a grant involved, Ernst & Young manages that grant. As a gesture of good faith, you should recuse yourself from voting on this matter.
I disagree.
Well, representing the 2,000 people thus far and still counting that have signed this petition, we vehemently oppose it. We want you to put it on hold, exhaust all the other options, and just know, well, I can't say, how in good faith could you continue with this tank knowing there's a large portion of this village who, we don't want this tank.
So my only comment to that is, and I appreciate the fact that people are voicing their opinion, but I'll ask the question that I keep asking all the time. So what happens if we exhaust all those and the tank is necessary?
Then we move it to another location,
So that
away
means
from
I got 30, I
homes,
got
away from
2,000,
the yacht
3,000
club,
people who will
away
do
from
that.
Highway 444, where it will be an eyesore. I've been down on that site. Where you're proposing to put this tank is above that lift station, way up on that berm. We can see the entire lift station headed south on 444.
Sure. Looking down
Sure,
the hill, yeah.
yes, you can. So
So
if we
here's
can
the
see
thing.
that
I don't
tiny lift
disagree with
station,
any
we're
of
going to
that.
see
We're not
this
gonna get into-
huge tank.
Time, stop, right here. We're not getting into an argument and a discussion. This is
No, I'm not
non-town hall.
arguing.
You said you were going to be short. Been a little
Well,
longer,
you're
but that's
you're
okay.
answering my
That's
questions.
okay.
That's not my problem. My point is, we will see that tank.
I don't
So-
disagree
So
with
if
you.
it comes down to it, then let's move the tank. Okay.
Fine, perfect, good answer, no problem.
And I think what you're hearing is that, you know, if we do end up needing the tank, that certainly will be looked at. What will it take and what will it cost to put it somewhere else rather than right there? If you go back and look at the reports that were given to not just the board, but to PSAC and everything, the options that were given to address this water problem that we have, you're right, it was to attack I&I, but at the same time, it was recommended to us, even if you resolve, and I can remember Bob sitting at a meeting a long time ago, several months ago, saying, hey, even if we fix the I&I issue, we still need the tank. Whether you agree with it or not, that's what was recommended.
That's not what Jacob said.
Will, so I'm just saying, we were there, that's exactly, so the recommendation was, whether you agree with it or not, was that we needed the tank in addition to reducing I&I issues. So it doesn't mean it needs to be at that location, you're right. We did not, and I think I said this to you last month, we did not spring this on you. This has been in the works for several years now. And it's now getting, and it doesn't matter, I agree with that, because now everybody's got attention, right? Everybody understands. We're working through this together as a community. It's not you against the board. It really isn't. All of us want what is best for this community.
Exactly.
And so if it comes down to needing a tank, we're going to look at, okay, do we have an option of putting it somewhere else that'll be further out of the way? And guess what? It'll cost more money, but so what, right?
Right.
And the fact that we need to delay the project puts that grant at risk, because that's got to be spent by 2026, sometime in 2026. But again, so what? We're going to walk down that path as we see it. So, as Chet said before, we're going to get the recommendation back from Jacobs per the meeting that we had December 6th, right? And then we'll decide what to do from there. I don't know what more we can say at this point. We've stopped everything, right?
And that's great.
And so
That's what
we're
we're
trying to
asking
work
for.
together, so please don't vilify us. We are working with.
We're on your
as
side,
much as
believe
we
it or
can.
not. We just don't want that tank in that location.
Understood. Got that. Got
I
that
think that
last
was
month.
really clear.
And so we're trying to
I
ask that
don't need
question.
your condescending attitude,
No,
Chet.
ma'am, I'm not trying to give it
Yes,
to you.
you
I'm
are. You're
trying to
being
say it's really
condescending.
clear. You're
Please.
acting as though I
Let's-
don't hear you. That's the part I'm saying. That's it. That's all. Because I do hear you. I heard you last week, and I was sincere when I'm saying that. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. Nobody is not listening. Well, I'll speak for myself. I can't speak for anybody else.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm back on the same topic, surprise. But I'm going to first of all say the December 6th meeting is a very busy time of year to pull together everybody that came to that meeting, and we appreciate that very much. I know I was begging for it, and I hate to beg at my age. But that was great because you heard the excellent plan by Mr. Lackey and Mr. Reed and their team of experts that helped them tremendously on these issues. And our ears and eyes are open to other alternatives, which is what we are pressing for. 2,000 people have said this ain't going to fly with the wastewater tank as proposed. So I just want to clarify something. I did read the 2021 Jacobs Engineering Report. That's the report that Mr. Lackey and Mr. Reed agree with. And I captured what it said about the offline storage in their report. It said the recommended improvements are due primarily to rain-dependent I&I during wet weather, and additional alternative solutions related to offline storage or rain-dependent I&I reduction could be included as part of any future analysis. But what's important to note is that report, which is a very good report, was able to help us with our wastewater issues through our build-out in 2035. So back in 2021, they were solid with that report. They just said, hey, later on, if you want to look at off-site storage or alternatives, we'll be able to help you with that, okay? And that report, like Ms. Reed said, also included the need to fix our I&I. We have an obligation to fix our I&I. We're not allowed to let it run crazy like it has been. I applaud Matt and his crew for what they have done in such a brief period of time. They were in the meeting on December the 6th, and for them to go out and hustle and get those risers put in is excellent. That meant they heard the message as well. So that is, the solution to all of our problems is, if we can reduce our I&I 50%, the wastewater tank goes away, everything bad like that goes away, and we keep millions of dollars in our pocket. Okay, so I want to impress upon you the need to, again, look at that 2021 report. It was solid back in 2021. It was supposed to help us through 2035. Please revisit it. I also want to ask that you request Jacobs Engineering or another engineering company to do a side-by-side comparison analysis between A and B. A is building a new 18-inch pipeline going under the Tennessee River directly to the LUB wastewater treatment facility. This will accomplish the following. Our village wastewater will move out of the village instead of being stored in a massive smelling loud wastewater tank during a heavy rain event. Bypassing the care and lift station means our wastewater can not have to go into that undersized 12-inch pipe they have that they're reviewing what they're going to replace it with. This solution has no downsides. Basically, it removes all of the bad features of the 750,000 gallon sewer wastewater tank. It gets us out of the business of storing it on site in the village, and it shoots it right in for treatment, okay? But costing about $4 million. Or option B, which is, if you insist on a
an on-site location for the wastewater tank. Have them compare that, how much that would cost, which last estimate was over $9 million versus that $4 million pipeline. And you will see, and you will have to say to engineers, because engineers are people that are very interested in function and efficiency. That's why they decided to slam that tank next to the main pump. Because hell, that's right next door. Very efficient. What they forgot about was the overarching part that they're in a neighborhood, okay? And that's just the inappropriate place to put an industrial tank like that. But I'm not blaming them because, like I said, they are coded in their brains to be efficient in what they do. They just happen to land it in the wrong location. So whoever you have look at another tank situation, be specific with them and tell them your solution cannot include putting a tank in a neighborhood. We don't want to see it. We don't even want to know it's there. I want to live here for 20 years and not be able to find that tank. I don't want to smell it. I don't want to see it. And I don't want the $200,000 a year it's going to cost us to mitigate the odor from it and to maintain it. So when you see a pipeline that costs you $4 million or a tank with all sorts of downside costing you $9 million, I think the choice is going to be easy for you. Now, again, I just want to get back to how important Matt and his team's work is on I&I remediation. I've given you a $4 million thing to look at, your engineers to look at, a new pipeline in the river that avoids the care lift station altogether, that pinch point. And I've asked you to look for another place for your wastewater tank or even another alternative. Because that wastewater tank, although everybody's fearful of a turd-mageddon, it's not as bad as you think. And when you get the luxury of spending a lot of time with Mr. Lackey and the gentleman that he works with and Mr. Reed, you'll understand. We already had a break in our discharge line, and it was handled beautifully. It's not something that you need to fear, and you will not fear when they walk you through the steps of what happens and how it's taken care of and who gets notified, the fact there's no fines if it's reported within 24 hours. It's a process. This happens. These pressurized lines do break quicker than other lines. So there is a way to do it, and if you become comfortable with that and understand these people know how to handle it, and they walk this walk their whole life, you will not be as overly alarmed at this situation. I know that from my experience with firearms. I've had people that are afraid of firearms smartly because they didn't know how to operate them. Once I was able to show them how to safely operate a firearm, they were all in. They understood. So this is an education process that you will be able to obtain from these gentlemen, and I hope that you take advantage of it. So thank you. I'm proud of Mrs. Reed collecting those signatures. It was done for the purpose of saying, please, please look at something else. Look at something that's better for our community. And we would appreciate it and do appreciate that you value us in your community and that you will take serious looks at alternatives. Thank you all.
So, y'all know how I feel about the tank, obviously. But I do have some other concerns I'd like to address today. I want to address the NDA, the non-disclosure agreements that this board has signed. Yeah, see? So, by signing those, in my opinion, that limits any real information that you can provide us without Chet's approval, right? Oh, really? Read it. Read the whole thing to these people. I have a copy.
The non-disclosure agreement defines what is confidential and protected information.
I've signed about 20 of them in my life, bigger than this.
Exactly, it's fairly minimal. And the scope of confidential information is already defined within the bylaws. The bylaws talks about exactly what is confidential information and subject to protection.
The
and also
bylaws
subject to
being the
executive session.
bottom rung of the legal requirements, right? The hierarchy. It goes Tennessee nonprofit law, incorporation documents, covenants and restrictions, and bylaws.
They're not directly related in this instance. What I'm saying is the non-disclosure agreement is a common practice for any business. You said you've signed many in your lifetime, and it's to protect the confidential information of that organization.
What confidential information here? Other than people's personal
Correct.
information.
There's contracts, there's employees, there's
Right.
personal information, there's lawsuits, there's litigation, there's a
But this
myriad of
covers a
confidential.
little bit more than that.
It uses the same exact words that are in the bylaws to define what can be discussed in executive session, which are contracts, employment matters,
Yeah, but
pending or
what,
threatened litigation.
contracts can be a broad term, right? Contracts can be a contract between this group and Jacobs Engineering, right? Can it not? It can be a contract between us and, say, our trash pickup that none of us would be aware of, and that this board would not be able to discuss with us.
The
Our
board-
contracts
the board
with
approves-
TAS, our
the board approves
contracts with
contracts in public.
LUB.
Contract negotiations are typically confidential, and that's typically at the requirement of vendors that the association deals with. But contracts that are executed are typically reviewed.
So
during
if I go
this
to
process.
TAS and I say to TAS, I want to review the contract agreement for water between us and TAS, would they give it to me?
TAS is a governmental
Yeah.
agency.
How about when I come to you guys and I say, hey, I want to see that? I would get a no, because it's already happened.
It's not provided for under the bylaws, nor is it
That's
provided.
exactly what I'm saying.
Nor is it provided under the Nonprofit Act, which you referenced. The Nonprofit Act specifically mentions what documents are available for disclosure to members. And it has an exact itemization of what's available for disclosure. Contracts are not included with that. It requires accounting records and information to show expenditures. So you do have, the POA in any nonprofit corporation has to show a record of its expenditures, which is what's within the scope of the Nonprofit Corporation Act.
Well, I'm going to have to obviously review the laws a little bit more and the nonprofit laws. I have looked at them quite significantly, and I didn't see that in them. Matter of fact, I called the Attorney General and talked to them about it. And they were quite concerned that everybody was signing NDAs here. So,
It's common practice with.
it's common practice at
nonprofits and
HOAs
for-profits.
and stuff like that, but to start doing it out of the blue, all of a sudden, how many
POA's
people
been doing
signed
it-
them? I
POA's
asked a few previous board members, none of them signed them.
POA's been doing it for a number of years.
Yeah,
And
what,
any
5?
committee I've been on, I've had to sign them for the 8
5
years
years,
I've been on.
maybe 10?
8 years of committees I've been on, I had to sign it.
Okay, 8 years. So, I mean, for us to get information, it makes it more difficult. That's all I'm saying. And for people to sit here and think it doesn't, you're out of your mind. Anytime these guys sign non-competes, it's to keep information away from you, not to protect, and more to protect them than you.
Well, wait a second, that's mine. I'm yielding my time to this lady. She speaks better than me.
I just have one quick question. You mentioned bylaws. Where can we locate the original bylaws on our website?
POA website.
No.
Yes.
On the front page of the POA website,
Under governance and under board of directors, all the governing documents are there. They're also under forms and docs.
the amendments are on there, the amendments to the bylaws, and as well as the original charter. But I can't locate a set of original bylaws, and Holly Hooper won't send them to me.
Okay, we'll make sure that they're up there.
Okay.
I wasn't aware they weren't
Yeah,
on the website.
the amendments are there.
They
The
should be,
amendments are
but if
there,
they're
but
not, I'll make
if they're
sure
there, I'm not seeing them.
Well, they definitely should be
Pretty sure
there.
they're there.
I'm sorry?
The original with the amended, they're in the same file. So when they were amended, the whole original was left and then the amendment was added at the bottom. But it is
I'll
the
look
original.
again. Okay.
So, we've had a tough year. You all on the board have taken a lot of flack. We've, on the other side of this, have questioned a lot of judgment calls, the way things have gone down. I'm hoping for the next year, things settle down. I came actually with the whole plan. As part of that plan was, I think, already addressed. And I want to say thank you to you all for putting the tap on hold at this point. I got a couple questions about that, by the way. Are we putting the whole thing on hold or just the water or the sewer portion?
I guess the board would have to speak to that. From my understanding is we're just putting it on the water and the sewer specific at this point.
Okay, because my understanding is our two new board members came up with JAP 2.0, which has a bunch of alternative plans to include the water supply into the village, which may not necessitate or would not necessitate the need for an elevated tank. And I saw $43,000 of spend on the elevated tank. I'm thinking we should put everything on hold until we get Jacobs to come back and take a look at the entirety of what we're talking about here.
So on the December 6th meeting, we started going through, we decided to put that discussion for later on the water with that team, and because we wanted to focus on sewer since that was the most pertinent issue today. But we are going to revisit with them, and we'll analyze the same process that we're doing now with the wastewater.
Right, but we're spending money that we, if it turns out that.
Really
I'm
not
just saying.
spending any money, no money's been authorized at this point for the water tower or that system yet.
The
So,
only money that is being spent
Is
is for either design work or study work at this
Study work,
point in
yeah.
time. That's
That's it.
that's the only money. There has been no authorization for actual expenditures
Yeah.
for what I would call new assets or anything in terms of changing existing assets, modification.
So the 43,000, Mike, thank you. 43,000 I saw in there, what was that for? That was the elevated tank.
At this point in time, it is part of a study process, or I'll have to look at Matt to see. But, I mean, there is study and design work going on, yes.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, why would we study
Well,
something?
that was previously approved in 6
Yeah.
months ago or
Yeah.
more.
Right, but
So
if
the
we're-
bills are just coming in. We're just paying the bills from the design
From-
and stuff we worked, we authorized 6 months ago.
Okay, got it. So all I'm saying is, by hold, we're not expending any more money on things that we may not need.
That's correct.
Okay, good, perfect.
No new expenditures until Jacobs and everybody gets together and decide which path we're gonna go down.
Okay, great, thank you for that. That's the right answer, I appreciate that. Reserve study. Judy, I got together with Judy a couple weeks ago, forgot to ask the timing on that. When is the new reserve study going to be?
Starts in March.
In March, okay.
We're also having the property reappraised for the purpose, of the reserve study is to
Okay.
have that reserve done.
So,
By property, I think, Chet, you mean the buildings?
All the infrastructure.
yeah. So the reason I ask is because I've looked at the detail of our existing reserve study, which we have been using as the baseline, right, for a lot of our financial decisions around how much we need to put aside for repair, replacement, maintenance of our assets. To use an expression that I'm going to nick from Brad Spiegel, I didn't see him here, my back of the napkin math on that I've seen, we don't need to do 8 to 10. And that's what that study says. So I base that on the fact that we're not going to replace the pipes in the ground. Half of the assets that are extrapolated in that as part of the present value theory of that report are saying that we're going to dig up the pipes in the ground 22, 24 years out, 2 separate days, 2 separate periods, and we're not going to do that. I talked with somebody I won't mention on the PSAC. I talked with Mike, right, and his engineers. We're just going to keep fixing those pipes. We're not going to replace them. So when we're doing this new reserve study, I want eyeballs. I want good eyeballs on this thing to make sure we're looking at the right assumptions, because it drives a lot of the financial decisions we're making.
So if I may speak to that just a little bit? I've been involved with over 7 reserve studies over the last even less than 10 years. And all the things you said are correct. In fact, you've missed several. As an example, in that study, they said that we were going to replace all of our fairways. That's never going to happen. It also says that we're all going to replace all of the streets in this community in 1 year.
The fairways are already out. We
Yeah, the fairways, I mean, I'm just saying what the original one said. So the point is that as we review these things, we have to look at it through logical eyes. And the problem was, and this is the gospel according to Chet, I'll put it that way. I don't believe the people who worked on the last reserve study wanted the reserve study in the first place. They were drugged there kicking and screaming. And so in this case, my position on it will be to review it in detail, to put it in perspective. As you said, we're never going to replace all the pipes in this community.
Right.
However,
Right.
if we have a big enough break, we could have millions of dollars to have to spend. So those are things that we want to keep in mind. We're never going to replace all the roads in 1 year. In fact, we're never going to replace half the roads in 1 year. We're going to keep on our plan that we've been doing, is repairing as we go and maintaining them. This is true of a bunch of different things. So as we look at this reserve study, and it's the reason I wanted the buildings done, is because the values of buildings and what it costs to replace them is a moving target. And they need to be updated a lot more carefully than they have been. And so that's also a piece that we want to apply to the reserve study. If the building's worth X, now that changes your number completely.
Right, well, and that's kind of my beef here. I understand that when we got this reserve studies done, they left behind a model, right, that we could play with the numbers. And it didn't get done. And we keep going with 8 to 10 million, let's call it 9, right, that we're planning on having to set aside when that study didn't show that. We clearly, anybody could have seen that and go, that ain't happening, and could have made the right adjustments. And the reason, well, I'm gonna.
Go ahead. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
What's that?
Oh, I thought you were looking at me turning the microphone on and turning it.
No. I'm passionate on this because it relates to other issues, which to me is our fear of financial calamity. We don't have enough money set aside. We've got to keep pounding my neighbors for more and more money every way we can. You know, get a fee here, get a fee there, and that leads me right into my next thing, which I'd like to see a benchmarking study of our water rates. I'd like to see the surrounding communities, right, what they're getting charged for their water, comparable communities, right, to us, because you know, when I took a look at this and I did the study, I mean, it was like 140% increase over 6 years that we've done here in the village. And our margin on that is approaching 35%. Again, my issue with that is prior to us consolidating all the accounts, right, into one big pot of money, we were setting that money aside in a segregated account. Money was going in, it was going out to pay for water and sewer. Now it's being thrown into the pot, and that money now, we'll call it $2.5 million bucks, is going to pay for Tanasi upgrade. My neighbors should not be paying for a Tanasi upgrade out of that money. That's a necessity. Water is a necessity here. It's not a nice to have. It's not a new bling bling facility we got, right? So that's what I'm saying. If we had the right numbers on the reserve, we'd have less pressure to try to say we need money here, we need money there, we have to keep doing what we're doing. Anyway, please consider that going forward. This last thing is also, I'm passionate about. In business, I've had a lot of experience. I do not like litigation. I stood up at this July meeting, I think it was, when you guys passed that tap fee. And, you know, I got to give it to our lawyer, Kevin. That was a very novel interpretation of our CC&Rs. That after 37 years, he could find hiding in plain sight something that everybody else had ever missed, okay? There's a lot of people in this village think that we've created a new assessment outside of our protective covenants. And some of those neighbors decided to throw some money at it and come up with a second opinion, which I actually asked for at that meeting, okay? Now, I don't like this overhang. I don't like the fact that we're in limbo on this. So what I'm recommending, what I'd ask you to consider, and we used to do this back in the day in business, we had a lot of contract law, arbitration, you know, we're two sides, you know, you got a customer, client, whatever, we don't agree on something, you put it before a judge. Doesn't cost much. group that I used to do, I don't know if they're still in business, called JAMS, but you probably know this, Bob. You know that they're third-party arbitration firms, right? Doesn't cost a lot of money. If you're really confident, you all are really confident in your position, write a legal brief, or you already got one, but if you want to bring it, you want to buff it out some more, have the other side do the same thing, put it before a judge. Don't go to, forget all this litigation stuff people's talking about. If I were in your shoes as a board member, I'd want this resolved. I don't want this thing hanging out. This is a simple, cost-effective way to get a solution on this answer, because we need an answer on that. Thank you for listening to me.
David Taylor from Mialacqua. Just got a handful of points. I came to the meeting in November and had listened to people before, and I know I had the impression, and I think the 2,000 signers of the petition had, and probably more people in the community had the impression that the board was close to having its mind made up and closed, and that the train was running down the track towards a really bad solution. And what I'm hearing since the November meeting and from you all today seems to me to be a really big turnaround about that, is to where you're listening and you're going to go take another look, and you're looking at alternatives, you're hearing the community, and I want to say a big thank you for that. It's not easy when you've gone a long way on a certain subject to say, wait a minute, maybe we ought to look again. Now, my wife would tell you I never have to worry about this because I'm never stubborn about anything, but thank you for that. Another point about all this, you know this when you work as a lawyer, but you probably know it in all kinds of business. There's a tension all the way through life between the need to get it right versus the need to get it quickly. You have to live on that knife edge in almost anything you do. And I would urge you to err on the side of getting this right. That's what's in the best interest of everybody in the community. And if it takes extra time, it's still worth getting it right. If we lose a grant, it's still worth getting it right. That's what we ought to do, is get this right. And as part of that, I would urge you, as Chet was alluding to, you guys are starting to make a plan to gather much more information. That's a really good idea. Please go get all the information you need, including a POA survey of every home in the village about, their I&I status, and a way to, as you were talking about earlier, actually be able to measure what's going on. We got to have that. Since the NDA came up, I've bumped into those as a lawyer before. I would urge you to review the NDA to make it be as narrow as possible. I mean, NDAs can sort of scare people, and I understand that. It's like you're hiding something, But if you think about it, there are reasons that there are things you don't talk about in public. The big reason for NDAs is always, personnel and employment matters. That's a matter of fairness. You just don't put that sort of stuff out in public. Lawyers tend, and I've been guilty of this myself many times, if you're assigned or hired to write something, you write it as broadly as possible. It's probably not a good idea here. Somebody should take another look and narrow that NDA to make sure that it only shields the things that really need to be shielded, and that it doesn't get in the way of board members being able to communicate with us. That's, to me, really important. I would hope that the new computer system, we'll call it, the new accounting system that you were describing earlier, which sounds like a wonderful step, I hope you can use that to ensure that the POA has redundant backup, so you can never again lose all the documents or all the information about something. That's, I know you all agree that should never have happened. And it's possible to have enough backup that you don't. So I would urge you to pay attention to that. My biggest suggestion, though, I mean, I can feel this whole situation here moving towards more harmony and more understanding, and, you know, we're in the season that emphasizes the importance of that, and I think we ought to pay attention to it. I would urge you to suspend the $80 fee. That would do more than anything else to increase harmony and understanding between the board and the community. It apparently is quite possible that you could come out in a place where you don't need that fee. And it's the fee that has got people's backs up more than anything here except the tank. It sort of would be a race between, you know, the tortoise and the hare, the fee and the tank. You know, as part of stepping back, taking another look, I don't think you have to ultimately decide about the fee, but you would go a long way towards getting people all pulling together if you just suspend the fee. And I would urge you to do that. Thank you.
My name is Rick Rossetto. I live in Tocoa, and I just have a question. I'd like to better understand why we're proposing a flat entrance fee of $5,000 rather than the percentage, I think it was 3% or whatever it was. How are we benefiting more with something like that other than a percentage?
I guess one reason is that when we had the town hall meetings last year on the fee, the consensus of the people that were present anyways felt that a flat fee was fairer or easier or better to stand better than a percentage fee, which was 1/2 of 1%, which means on a $750,000 house, it would be $6,700. On $1 million house, it would be $5,000. $2 million, it's just, I guess, simpler.
Well, it's definitely simpler, but I don't understand how it can be fairer.
Well, so let me jump in here if I may.
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We all, as property owners, pay the same assessment fee per lot. We, as residents, pay the same fee for golf, for rec, for docks, if you have a dock. It's the same fee across the board. This one was different. If you look at other POAs and communities around, they charge a uniform flat fee. Now, in many cases, it's much higher than what we're proposing, but that's the standard. So the combination of those things together is why I favor a flat fee as compared to a percentage, because you could have somebody coming in for a minimum amount and somebody else having to pay $15,000. And I can't, in my mind, justify, wait a minute, we're all paying the same assessment each month, we're all paying the same to utilize the various amenities of the community, but why should this be different? And particularly when I stack that up against other POA organizations or HOA organizations.
So this is how it's being done elsewhere.
Yes, so that's the part of my rationale for looking at it that way.
And the way I look at it is, when you buy in, you're buying in to pay for, to fund existing infrastructure. So whether you got a $2 million house or a $250,000 house, infrastructure is here to support that lot.
And the infrastructure will be the same whether the house is big or small.
Why would someone have to pay more for infrastructure than somebody else?
Thank you, that's what I wanted to know. Merry Christmas.
Bobby Dobson. I'm thinking about the $80 fee and, you know, the talk about suspending it. The I&I is going to have to be resolved at least to some degree. May not eliminate 100%, but we're going to have to drop it down 40 or 50% the way I understand it now, at least to be able to handle it through the sewer treatment plant and facilities that we have right What would be wrong, I mean, I'm all for stopping the $80 a fee while we get this resolved, but we didn't budget anything for I&I. We hadn't got any real solid program underway and, full speed ahead. Why don't we take some of that money right now? Give it to Matt and his crew and have them come up with a plan, hire some contractors or whoever we need to, and get on with it. And let's use some of that money that we've already got. It doesn't have to come out of the budget for next year because it's already in there. And consider that as one of the options so that we can get this problem solved rather than drag it down the road another 5 years. So that's my first comment. And now I've lost my second. That's what this white hair does for you. But, well, I'll think of that in a minute. But I know what the second one. The one thing that bothers me about some of the discussion I've heard here today is saying, stop everything right now. Don't do anything. Well, I think Michael and his crew and everything would agree with this. There's a lot of things in that TAP plan that we're going to need to do anyhow. And you can say, yeah, one of them's probably the elevated tank and so forth. May be or may not, but that's one that could be in question. But one in my mind that is not is upgrading these pumps. As I understand the situation right now, when you have a rain event, the guys have to jump in the pickup trucks and go down different ones to different pump stations. And they operate them manually. They can't stand here and operate one down the road. There's got to be another guy down there. They got to tell what to up and down. Has no pressure gauge on either end of it, what's coming in or what's going out, and no flow rates, which I understand is in the improvements to be done. We ought to be running hell-bent for election on that. And there's probably some other things, but that's the part I understand. And let's get going on I&I and the needed operational things and get those underway tomorrow or the next day as soon as we can. But let's don't just stop everything, because these other things are going to help us be able to manage what sewer issues we have now, even as bad as they are during a rain event, manage them better. Give our guys that capability where they can sit in one room, whether it's a garage or down here to headquarters, doesn't matter. They need a place where they can sit there with today's technology in front of them, a computer screen. They can see the pressure coming in, the pressure going out at every one of these stations, even the care lift station down there, because that's what they're impacting. And keep those things going. Don't pull the plug on those. Pull the other 5 plugs, but don't pull these two or three. And get underway. That's the one I couldn't remember.
Thank you.
John Olson. And I, it's great that we're starting to look at remedial action on individual tanks, but it's a big job to try and figure out what the effect is from that. I would like to suggest that we look at one case study, which is already set up for us, and that's called Kahiti. 600 homes, 1 sump, 1 lift pump, and a known I&I problem. They overflowed in September. So if we can direct our actions to Kahiti for the individual corrections on tanks, we might get a quick jump on trying to find out what the effect of the remedial action will be. The other thing I'd like to just ask, we talked about water. I guess that's going to be discussed with Jacobs down the road. One thing I would like to ask from looking at the reports, how is Jacobs going to make water run uphill? You might look and say, what? We're going to put an elevated storage tank in that has a hydraulic grade of 1120. The biggest supply from LUB is on Maple Hill, 2,000 gallons a minute at 1070. How are you going to get the water from 1070 up to 1120? You took the pump out of the whole project thing. There's no pumps to boost it up anymore. So I don't know how you're going to get water to run uphill. Where's the pump? The booster pump in the design is specifically to take the water at 300 gallons a minute up to the tank. The design says specifically, the booster pump on Maple Hill, the booster pump on Little Valley is eliminated. You don't have it.
I would have to listen to the.
I looked at it. You want to look? I got it right here.
I don't know that map piece that to say what's been sure. I know the booster pump was in there, but I'm not an engineer to say exactly what.
I agree. The booster pump was in phase one, which was axed out and put to an elevated storage tank. I don't know how you're going to get the water up there.
Well, originally there were 6 pumps going to be added in one.
Ed, microphone, please. Ed?
Yeah,
Originally, there were six pumps that were going to be added in one plan that they were looking at before the tank was implemented. So I've been focusing on water and sewer. I haven't looked at that plan in about 3 or 4 months. I have to go back and actually see what's valid you, and I want to go back to the experts like Matt, PSAC, and Jacobs to see if that's actually true.
Well, there were only 2 pumps in the original project, booster pumps, and that was at Little Valley and at Maple Hill. And it was said, when those 2s were in, they would negate any effect that a booster pump would have at Poplar Ridge and Ritchie Road.
You're correct. I can't answer that right now. I'm not the engineer.
Okay,
It's
and I
something we have to
understand
look
that.
at.
I just
Something we
like
have
you.
to look at, for
I would
sure.
like you to ask Jacobs how they're going to get water uphill without a pump.
Thanks.
So-
Hello, I'm Bart Brody. I had a couple questions. One on the software package for the accounting. I'm glad you didn't go with SAP. I was in the automotive world. It's horrible. It's horrible and it's expensive. I saw where it's costing us, what, 240-something thousand to buy, just to buy in. And then it's basically $30,000 a year upkeep. 90 a year? I thought the 90 covered for 3 years.
Every year.
90
Ow.
a year.
Then do we have a guarantee of at least no more than maybe a 4 to 5% increase each year?
It would be locked in for 3 years.
And then at the end of those 3
And
years,
after the 3 years, you have to sign a new contract.
why not negotiate like a 5% on down the road? Because 3 years goes by quick.
We can certainly ask, my
You
procurement
try. That's
manager is
exactly
extremely,
right.
yeah, we will ask about that.
Thank you. The other thing I was interested in is, especially Chet, since you get to be number one, you catch it all. But yeah, you share the name, you share the blame. The sewage tank they're talking about, when it came to you all, before you ever brought it to us, did you not think it was going to go ballistic and everybody's going to tell you no? I mean, seriously, did you not?
So I'm going to tell you it's something that nobody else has brought up here,
Well, I'm-
and it's
not
one
yet.
that I agree with, and it's exactly the thought that crossed my mind.
Yes, sir.
And that was, what genius put our main water pump station, sewer pump station, within 100 feet of the lake? That's one. Number 2, I have the idea of the tank being obstreperous and nobody wants to see it, get all that, makes perfect sense. But nobody's brought up the fact, everybody says these tanks are solid, they're good, and they are. But what happens when they're not?
It's a mess.
So 700,000 gallons within 100 feet of the lake. So I don't disagree at all that if we have to go with the tank, we need to find a different spot.
Okay.
And that's been my
great.
premise.
I'm glad you said that. Because I was going to say, why even bring it up here to
I'm
begin
not
with?
the engineer. I can suggest that. I can actually look and see if there's other property around that we
Yeah.
own that we could do that.
Yeah, I'd have told them, go back to the drawing board. Or go back
But
to,
so
put
that's
it up
the-
where the maintenance
Well,
facility's
again,
at.
it's like everything else in life. It's just money.
That's true. But at least you know now, it doesn't need to be for any reason where y'all have got it planned at right now. You agree with that?
I agree that in my uneducated engineering, non-engineering
Yeah.
specific opinion, anything like that close to the lake is a problem.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sid, you're the last
last one.
I'm the last one. I'm Gig Wilkowski. I thank all of you for being there, being up there. I'm glad it's you, not me. And I want to start, Bob, you started the meeting today saying the water was going to be at the town hall on January 9th. You started it. And everybody had to come and speak about it anyhow, and I hope they all come back January 9th to speak again. It's an issue. But I have a real issue. This is from, I won't even tell you who it's from. It's going to open up a big can of worms. But I'm supposed to ask, do you know they won't be able to play cards at the yacht club anymore? Are you aware of that issue?
So I will cut you off before there is a mob at the door, and there are guns blazing. It is under consideration, not just for the yacht club, but to try and find a way to have the food service group and the card players live harmoniously. Right now, that's not happening, and so we're trying to find that. So yes, it is under consideration.
It is the number one issue in my household.
I understand, Gig, and as you also know, I live 2 doors down from that issue. And she knows where I live and will tell me about it. And so, but there's a difference, and I'm now going to drop into a personal level. There are groups of card players, and I'm going to use your group that your wife plays in, that go in, they buy food, they do what they're supposed to do, they take a table, they play their game, and they leave.
And leave tips.
And leave tips. Those aren't the people that we're trying to address. And this is not even my argument one way or the other, but when you have a group of 20 people come into the main area of the yacht club, sit down, play cards, and yell for the waitresses to come over and bring them water, and when they run out of water, they're yelling for the waitresses to bring them more water. They don't spend any money, and they take up 20 tables, and they leave. So from a business standpoint, or even from the community's use of it, that's a problem. So we have to find a better way. But I don't want to say any decision has been made, because that would be a lie, too.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you for being, and Merry Christmas.
Hi, I'm Jim Triss. I'd like to find out if you guys are willing to commit actually money, put your money where your mouth is, as far as doing these INIs. Are you guys willing to give out funds so that you can actually do the research and go out there, do a survey? As you might, I don't know if a lot of people know, I'm one of the people, along with Tom and I, that actually created that survey that Matt used, that 927. And the beauty of that was easy pickings to go fix this stuff. And you guys can do the same. If the board would put it out, a survey, you're going to get a lot bigger response than what we did. We had no authority at all. We put out there for 5 weeks, and we had that type of response. So people are here willing to help and actually mitigate this situation.
Sure. I don't, as I said earlier, I have no problem with the idea of going out and doing a survey to the entire community on that topic. And I don't believe, as the CEO, I'll say this, the board can always override me. I don't believe we have a choice in terms of spending money toward repairing I&I. That's just my perspective, and that would be my comment, is that once we have a plan, now I don't want to just throw money at it. I want us to have a plan. I want us to be able to qualify and quantify and measure. Yep, that worked. Nope, that didn't. And be able to do that, but I don't think we have a choice.
Yeah, I agree. I think, as you mentioned before, it's kind of obvious, but we can get more precise by metering it. But it's pretty obvious. Jacob said, 4 or 5 times during a rain event, the water increases, so you obviously know you got an I&I problem. And you can obviously see that if you fix, say, half of these, okay, if it drops more than half, you know it's working.
Well, the thing is that, and I guess I'm being picky, because I would really like to resolve as much of this as I can. And I need to go on record, since I get quoted a lot of different ways. I am not saying that we will ever be able to solve all the I&I problem. It will exist forever, in some form or fashion.
I agree.
So, that being said, I think we have to make all the efforts that we can to find what that is. I'm not convinced we've been able to do that. And my point earlier was, when we have a water event, those pumps run nonstop for hours or sometimes days. And if we make a change that stops a certain percentage of that water coming in, we aren't going to know that if all the pumps are still turning. More or less, we've affected it, but we've not affected it enough to take the pressure off the pumps for running nonstop.
Well, they must have been able to measure it somehow to come up with.
That's how they've come up with it.
Well, to
is-
come up with something that's 4 or 5 times an increase.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, they're measuring it based on the number, how long the pump is
Okay,
running and
yeah,
and the
it's a
speed it's running.
It's a
at.
measurement.
Yeah, it's a measurement, but it's in my head, it's a shotgun, and I'd like to be more precise to know that.
And they were talking about that, Joel and Lackey, as far as metering that through the lift stations and also directly right at the
Well,
people's houses.
that's been in Jacob's plan all
Yeah.
along.
Well, yeah.
That
that's
hasn't
good.
been, that's not new.
That's all good stuff. That's
Yeah.
all good stuff. Okay, thank you.
You bet.
All right. Thank you all again for coming. I just have a couple of remarks before I adjourn the meeting. I've spent the last 6 years, 7 years almost, 1 year with the HOA, 3 on the golf, and 3 here, volunteering my time, and I've enjoyed 90% of it. But I just want to thank all the board members that I've sat with over the last 3 years, and I know they're all dedicated to doing what is best for Tellico Village. I want to thank all the staff, the executive staff, and all the employees that I've met over the years, who are also all very dedicated to Tellico Village. In addition, the advisory committees, there have probably been well over 100 people that I've dealt with who are in advisory committees who volunteer their time and their expertise to help the board make these decisions and to make Tellico Village the place that it is, the great place that it is to live. We obviously have our issues and different ideas, but it's still a very wonderful place to live as far as I'm concerned. I've been here 12 years, and my wife and I are very happy to be here. So I just wanted to thank everyone as I become just a resident after this. In about 5 minutes, I'll be just a resident. And thank you all for all your participation and all the participations we've had. Thank Chet and his staff, and Kevin, who's given us his counsel on a number of items. So with that, the meeting is adjourned. The executive